The parties have found a solution naman on how to settle their differences amicably. But tuloy-tuloy pa rin yung serbisyo ni Kobe, so to speak. So that's how, or the relationship of us and Kobe became to, our RV came about.
Okay. May we know clearly, Attorney, if what went wrong with the intention of Metropark buying Rio Verde?
I'm sorry.
What went wrong with the negotiation from Kobe, from Metro Pacific buying the facility of Rio Verde?
Well, siguro that matter kasi po is between sa amin ni Rio Verde. I was not there what happened, but pagkaalam ko po is Metro Pacific has paid Rio Verde, but there were some conditions precedent that were not complied with. So the arrangement now is RV is trying to pay us back the money that we're supposed to use as investment in Rio Verde.
Okay. Until such time na nabuo yung Kobe, kasi may agreement si COWD at saka si Metro Pacific. Meaning, Kobe is the product of the two, COWD and Rio Verde.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ay, no. Kobe is the product of Water District and Metro Pacific.
Yes. Yun po ang sinabi ko po. Okay, so ito na tayo sa Kobe. I understand, Attorney Rodrigo, you were invited by one of the committees under the whole task force prior to this fact-finding, correct?
Yes, one of the committees, meaning kayo po, the City Council.
Other than this,
prior to the TWG, there was one hearing po with the City Council. I believe
Yes,
you
okay.
were the chair. Yes.
So, City Council. Okay, so tama. Gusto ko lang iklaro po kasi open to the public to, and the media community is here. No? Itanong ko lang, yung investment na sinasabi, magkano ba talaga yung na-invest ng Kobe as part of complying the contract?
With RV, with Rio
I
Verde,
mean,
or
Kobe po.
Kobe, magkano ba the total investment of Kobe, what contract po are you referring to?
Something like 1 billion or 300 million po.
Well, the Metro Pacific Group in general, coming into Cagayan de Oro, has spent over 1.4 billion na po.
Meaning, utilize po. Nagamit lahat yung...
Some, it was partially used to invest in the investment in our Rio Verde, while others were used to improve the facilities such as the pipeline, of course and other certain areas in improving the plant po.
Was the information correct, Attorney, that what was actually used or spent is 300 million and the other 1 billion is sourced through ULSA?
No. The also came about, sir, kasi our investments in RV, where we did not meet eye to eye, this is how they are paying us back through the ULSA po.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you po, Attorney Rodrigo. Ang pangalawa kong tanong, may lumabas na 4 disconnection notices, tama po ba?
Yes po.
Yes po. Was the impression correct that the disconnection was supposed to be intended only for COWD and Kobe and not necessarily for public consumption.
Well, the letter was addressed to COWD because they are our direct off-taker.
Yes
They're
po.
the ones who have failed to comply with their obligation. Ergo, sila po yung sinulatan namin. Now, how that letter or the demand came to public eyes or public knowledge, we're not aware sino po nagpalabas po niyan sa publiko.
Pero honestly, was the disconnection notice is intended solely for COWD consumption?
Initially, pero of course, as courtesy, we also furnished the office of the mayor as courtesy rin. But aside from that, it was directly addressed naman to the water district.
Okay, kasi nalilito yung taong bayan po, no, Attorney Rodrigo, kasi one of the boards of directors, I don't need to mention his name, but sabi for your eyes only po, yung disconnection notice. Tama po ba yun?
I don't recall it being that way because all our communications to the water district, we also copy furnish the office of the mayor. But of course, again, I will repeat how it got out to public eyes. We don't know. But our intention was to write directly to the water district and as courtesy inform the mayor and this good council of what was going on between the parties.
And granting that it was solely for the COWD, but why inform the mayor about the disconnection notice? Was the impression correct na tanungin natin si mayor, parang gano'n, anong masasabi niyo? Kasi pardon attorney, once a letter, for example, is forwarded to the mayor, especially it concerns public interest, I think hindi na kasalanan kung bakit nag-leak yung disconnection notice. Because, of course, receiving a disconnection notice affecting 40,000 individuals, for example, that will cause for alarm. Because I don't think a mayor in his right mind will simply hide that information to the public. Tama, attorney, correct?
I agree. And we're not pointing any fingers, Your Honor. In fact, like I said, we copy furnish the office of the mayor out of courtesy because we know that this will affect the public.
Yes.
So we're not pointing fingers on who leaked the information to the public. We're not blaming anyone or we're not even saying that anyone should be held liable for this. We're just saying that kami, from our perspective, we don't know who did it. Yun lang po. Hindi namin alam lang po sino.
But as a lawyer, as a legal counsel of the two companies, may I know if kung ikaw lang po, no, yung gumawa ng sulat, is it proper or ill-advised?
What are we...
Meaning, the disconnection notice addressed to COWD and to the mayor is ill-advised. Meaning, mali yung kung sino man nagbigay nun. Because, nagpanik po ang taong bayan po, attorney.
Well, I wouldn't say it was ill-advised. It was more of courtesy to the mayor, informing him of the dispute that was going on between us as well. We believe, honestly, that the mayor should be apprised of what's going on within his area.
Yes po. Attorney, this is a joint venture agreement, no? Joint venture agreement, Kobe, meaning the Kobe has, siguro, ilan po ba yung board doon sa Kobe?
Dalawa po.
I mean, the composition of the
Nine, seven po.
Seven.
Seven po. Two of
Seven.
which water district po.
This disconnection notice, do you consider it alarming, attorney?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, attorney. Okay. Having said that, attorney, may I know if the said disconnection notice was a product or a collective wisdom of the 7 members of the board?
Well, I would have to say it was majority of the board.
Majority of the board.
Yes po.
Meaning, masasabi natin, attorney, na outvoted yung representative ng COWD. Parang ganon.
In that particular case, yes po. But just to give you a background, it's
Yes po.
very difficult to get an audience with the members of the water district.
If I may interject, attorney, at that time, you were having difficulty contacting the two.
No po. As in getting them to meet with us. We invited them, they confirmed, but they always cancel last minute po. So it's
Nagbigay
very
po ba sila
difficult to
ng
get an audience
reasons?
with them.
Can we solicit if there is a formal invitation addressed to them, attorney, for purposes of ferreting out the truth? Because it might be your word against mine, for example. Baka lang naman po.
We have text messages po where they confirmed that they would originally attend the meetings. Yet, if you notice on the day that we agreed to meet, last minute they would text na magka-cancel sila. So, yun ang ano na.
The other 5, nag-decide na lang po.
Well, we were pretty much forced to kasi wala na po eh. It's very, like I said, it's very hard to get them to attend our meetings eh.
Okay, ganun.
So, as much as we invite,
But,
they would not.
aside from text messages, were there formal invitation, attorney? I
Well,
do not
for
know if...
both meetings-
yes po, yes po.
Regular board meetings, yes. But again, we encountered issues where attendance of the CAUDI, whether it be online or in person, it was difficult for them to show up or difficult to get their attendance. It was only in 2022 or 3 where they actually asked for a board meeting asking us to help them with their tariff increase, which we agreed to. Po. We sat down, we tried to take up again the issues of the payables. It was again deferred, and then future meetings thereafter, wala na po. Hindi na kami makuha ng audience.
And because of that difficulty contacting them, attorney, the other 5 decided on their own without the benefit of knowing whether or not the two will abide with that disconnection notice. Meaning, what I mean is, did you exhaust all the possibilities? Because this decision should be a product of consultation, Attorney Rodrigo, sir.
Yes, sir. Actually, we raised this issue since 2021. We've also raised it in previous board meetings. As you mentioned, pang-apat na nga po ito eh.
Yes, po.
You know, we even tried to go on a personal route where our former president, si Rogelio Singson, tried to discuss this with the GM directly. We even flew down to Cagayan de Oro. Representatives agreed to meet with us only to find out pagdating po namin sa venue, no-show sila. Tapos, several text messages. You know, I think for the past 2-3 years po, we've exhausted all remedies and trying to reach out and settle this. There were times where we would catch them and we would be able to talk to them, but no firm commitment on the payment po.
firm commitment on the payment. I do not know if the other five board of directors, Attorney Rodrigo, consider at that time yung pandemic na problema. Kasi po, siguro gusto ng the other two board na mag-usap tayo ng face-to-face. At that time, I think all of us, no, we're having difficulty na kasi walang eroplano.
We
Di ba
agree. We agree.
kinukonsidera yun po ba?
We agree. And
Yes.
at the time, it was 2021, I just forget the date. We were requested by the members of Caudi to defer po the collection of the increase for about 6 months because of the pandemic po kasi nahirapan po daw sila mag-collect. Uh, which we allowed naman po. We agreed to it. So we deferred the collection. Kaso after the 6-month period that we deferred, we informed them that we will be implementing the increase na. At that time, no resistance was given by the water district. It was only in 2023 where they started invoking the force majeure po na dapat daw hindi nag-increase ang COVID. Very belated in very late in time, and considering that it's already 2024 and the pandemic has pretty much gone from the Philippines, although while the virus is still here, we've learned how to deal with it and life has normalized. It's and Calbi still invoking force majeure. It's difficult for us to accept.
Okay. Attorney Rodrigo, sir, no, thank you for that information. No? Attorney, may I know if you have sent 4 demands, no? Sabi, disconnection po. No? I am not a lawyer, though I am educated about what's in the contract. No? Actually, yung pagka-abogado, frustration ko yun, attorney, kasi hindi ako natapos. But, may I know if the manner of collecting the supposed income or increase is within the bounds of the signed contract? For example, necessary po ba na disconnection? Because I understand in the contract, it says pag may dispute, may ano naman tayo, may ano yung tinatawag, arbitrary. Hindi ba some of the processes or procedure na shortcut po na instead of going through the process of arbitration as a manner of collecting the supposed increase, disconnection agad? Attorney,
If I may, Your Honor, thank you for those questions. First, I'd just like to inform this Honorable Council that this is pretty much patterned after our Iloilo bulk supply,
Okay.
where the increase is also contractually every 3 years. And in Iloilo, we've had no problems ever since the inception of the agreement, whether it be the collection, whether it be the increase. Wala naman po kaming problema doon. You're asking if it's within the bounds of the contract. Yes po. There's a parametric formula which is triggered every 3 years po, based on inflationary rates po.
If I may interject, attorney, excuse me, my question is, was the manner of collecting the supposed increase is within the bounds of the contract? Meaning, kasi may arbitration. Tama po ba? Na kung may ganitong pag-uusapan, dapat i-resolve muna sa arbitration prior to sending an alarming disconnection notices, attorney. You may mention nga it was patterned from Iloilo, but that pattern will be construed as the same pattern to be used sa Cagayan de Oro contract. Ganun po ba?
Well, that was our business model. But going back to your original question,
Yes, po.
if it's within the bounds of the contract, we would say yes, because arbitration,
Yes, po.
while it is an option, you have to remember that our obligation to deliver the water is also contingent on whether or not Saudi breaches the contract or not.
Yes po.
While our obligation is to deliver po the water, there are what we call acceptable reasons for us not to deliver.
Yes po.
Isa na po doon yung pag-breach ng contract. Now, clearly, ang hindi ng pagbayad ng tama according to the contract is a clear breach naman to us.
Okay, gusto ko lang itanong, pag hindi magbayad, breach talaga yon. No argument about that, attorney. My point is, dapat ba, necessary ba na idaan po sa arbitrary? O
Well, any disputes, if
prior to invoking breach of contract, attorney. Kasi, correct me, attorney, no? Posible kasi pag na-exhaust yung arbitrary at talagang sasabihin doon na hindi kami magbabayad, that constitutes breach. Correct me if I am wrong or correct, attorney.
Mr. Vice Chair, I think you're referring to arbitration, not arbitrary.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
arbitration.
Yes po.
Secretariat?
Yes, po.
The Vice Chair is referring to arbitration, not arbitrary.
Attorney. Rodrigo.
Sa amin naman kasi po, from our perspective, hindi po,
Sana
ayun.
naman po kasi. Sana naman
Okay.
po kasi. Sana naman po kasi. Attorney. Sige, you may continue, attorney po.
Okay. So, from our perspective, since there's no payment to us, that's a clear breach na po.
Yes,
Really, we do not have to resort to arbitration to determine whether or not Caldi is paying us. I think when there's a dispute po, when there's something na you cannot determine who's right or who's wrong, that's when the parties should resort to arbitration. In this case, it's clear naman that Caldi has an obligation to pay. They should pay. Since they're not paying, it's a clear breach. There should be no argument about it.
Okay, tama po. No, Mr. Chair, no, let it be noted that the decision to have it disconnected is based po sa inyong perspektibo po. Perspective.
Well, kasi po,
Not
we're the ones-
necessarily the perspective of the other party.
Mm.
Tama po.
Well, it's clear naman po that we asked for their side naman.
Yes po.
They said they invoked force majeure, but they haven't substantiated how the force majeure has affected their right to comply with the obligation. Or rather, paano naapektuhan yung pagka-carry out nila ng obligasyon nila. Because para sa amin po, it's clear we delivered the water. They sold the water sa mga tao na Cagayan de Oro, and they were able to collect. Yet, yung collection na yun dapat napunta either sa tao nila, para na sweldo, sa NRW or CAPEX projects, at saka sa mga suppliers, kasama po kami dyan. Kaso, nangyayari, hindi bumaakyat sa amin yung what is due. Ganon.
Attorney Rodrigo, yesterday, we invited Sir Joel Baldilobar, a personal consultant of the Rio Verde.
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed, ano po, yung requirement is 100, tama po? 100 million liters per day po? Tama?
Dapat po, pero the Cagayan Water District, Cagayan de Oro Water District asked us not to kasi hanggang 80 lang daw kaya nila.
Kasi they are arguing at that time, they were arguing at that time na kasi po nagsara po yung mga restaurant, yung other commercial establishment hindi gumagamit ng tubig. Meaning to say nga at that time dapat 100 yung dapat ibigay nyo. Pero yung COWD nag-ask po ng deferment kasi saan namin to ibibigay? Di ba force majeure yun? Meaning, somehow, nag-agree po kayo na okay, sige. sige, okay lang naman. Kasi, parang ganun ba? Meaning, na you agreed na, okay, sige, 80 lang po. Di ba somehow, parang implied admission po na you consider force majeure argument used by the COWD. Parang ganun ba, attorney? Which is which, attorney?
Ano po, kasi like I said, nung initial na force majeure na sinasabi nila na hindi sila makollect, we agreed to that.
Yes po.
Including yung pag-throttle down ng hindi pag-step up sa 100 MLD.
Yes, po.
We agree to that because, as mentioned, there is an explanation.
Yes po.
Kaso, now in 2023, they're saying na dapat hindi inimpose yung increase dahil sa force majeure. Sabi namin, how did the force majeure affect you from di ba? So, while there are other matters na in-apply naman yung force majeure because it made sense, may explanation po sila and how it affected them. Collection. So, deliver namin collection. Sige, walang problema. O, delivery ng 100 MLD, bawasan nyo, 80 lang. O, sige, bawasan namin. We accepted it. We're reasonable people here, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
ang nagiging issue dito, yung increase, sinasabi lang nila, force majeure po. So we asked naman, to be reasonable people, tinanong namin, how did the force majeure affect you or prevent you from complying with your obligation there? Wala na kami po nakuha ng maayos na sagot.
Attorney, okay, thank you for that information. But when the pandemic was lifted by no less than the President,
Yes.
hindi nyo po ba kinukonsidera yung period of recovering the pandemic? Halimbawa, noon wala akong trabaho. Ngayon, bago lang ako nagkatrabaho. Di ba part yun sa proseso na ipabangon mo muna yung tao bago magbayad? Hindi ba niyo yung time consideration sa halimbawa? Kasi while the COVID, yung pandemic parang na-stop na, di ba gradual naman yung recovery? At hindi natin pwedeng sasabihin na kasi nag-stop na yung COVID, yung mga advisories, pagka umaga or tomorrow, implement na natin kaagad. Wala ba kayong consideration sa time na ito si Rooney Waniwan, 3 buwan to walang trabaho? Di man siguro pwede na okay, wala ng COVID, bayad ako agad. Paano ako makabayad gan? Wala bang somehow yung bang humanitarian consideration, attorney? Wala bang consideration sa ganun?
Understand, Mr. Chair, as I mentioned, nung pandemic, ang ni-request po sa amin ng Saudi was to defer collection, which we did.
Yes po.
We did po. And it was only in 2023 where they're backtracking now. So, ang hirap naman bumalik to. Kaya nga tayo pumayag na nung umpisa, nung i-defer yung collections ng at that time, the increase would have been 21 pesos, something like that.
Yes po.
We deferred. We gladly agreed to their request because of humanitarian reasons nga po. And because they gave us firm explanations on how it affected the business at the time. So, ang request nila, dito muna tayo sa 1660, where we are today.
Yes.
Kaso, it's only in 2023 where they're saying na dapat hindi na increase noon pa. So, it's, now we're backtracking. Of course, kami naman po, with all due respect, paano kung kami naman, we just say na we'll stop delivering kasi force majeure with no other explanation. Mahirap naman tanggapin yun on your side, di ba? We have to give some substantial explanation.
I understand. Yes, I understand. But knowing Metro Pacific, attorney, siguro sasabihin natin at saka alam mo rin yan na pag hindi makapagbayad ng 3 buwan, hindi pa siguro mamumulubi yung Metro Pacific, attorney.
Well, it's not Metro Pacific in general, sir.
Yes,
We're looking at
we're
looking at one of a subsidiary po, and the way we deal with it is in arm's length naman talaga lahat. Kopi in itself is a separate entity. So very limited. May sariling obligations to si Kobe other than yung mga obligations ni Metro Pacific. Siyempre, we cannot ask our mother company na suportahan naman kami all the way. It'll be a losing business, di ba? Again, I will reiterate, Mr. Vice Chair, that, this decision did not come lightly. We have been pushed up to a wall na at wala na kaming ibang choice. So, disconnecting, or if ever we do disconnect po, will be the last resort lang talaga po after considering all possible options.
Last resort. Dito po tayo sa impact, meaning the impact of that disconnection notice to the public. Attorney, no? I think you know the huge impact to the community, attorney. Diba? I think no argument about that. No? Imagine, attorney, or of course, ikaw, no, is a respected lawyer. May I know from you sa practice po ninyo. Sample lang naman kung meron. Was there an instance where a GOCC, like COWD, is held hostage by a private company like Kobe? May nakita ka pa po bang ganon?
In my experience, wala po. And we're not trying to hold you hostage.
Exactly. Because when we speak of GOCC like COWD, di ba, the contract is imbued with public interest. Correct, attorney? Hindi po pwedeng i-hostage yung parang isang ahensya ng gobyerno. Tama po ba, attorney? Walang instance na gano'n.
But again, we're not trying to hold the water district hostage. Kasi naman po, kami may financial obligations na kung hindi namin ma-fulfill, kami naman po magsasara. Adi lalo na wala ng water district ng tubig ngayon.
Kasi I don't know, I don't know to attorney if you agree with me na po, na kung mag-push-through yung disconnection. Kasi sabi nyo, pag hindi magbayad, I think, reading from the letter, pag hindi magbayad ang water district, puputulan. Meaning to say, it is somehow a hostage-taking attorney. Pag hindi kayo magbayad ng ransom money, parang ganon, papatay namin to. Di ba? Kasi that was the content of the letter, attorney.
I would disagree po. Kasi when you're talking about hostage-taking, walang karapatan yung nag-hostage eh. Kami po, may karapatan po kami.
To some extent po. To some extent po. Kasi,
it's a stretch po, but
I just use that
purpose,
metaphor, attorney, not necessarily nga the situation is hostage-taking. Kasi sabi ninyo po sa letter, pag hindi magbayad ang COWD, puputulan namin kayo. It's not exactly the hostage-taking situation. But, well, pardon me if yung metaphor ko po medyo mali. But, ito, pag hindi kayo magbabayad, puputulan ko kayo. Ano yung tawag, attorney, if you may describe the situation? If not hostage-taking, what is it?
It's asking the water district to carry out its obligation. Yun lang po.
Attorney, pardon me, attorney, hindi po tayo nag-argue. But ang sabi kasi sa letter, pag hindi kayo magbayad, puputulan ko kayo. That's clearly stated in the letter, attorney. That is why from the beginning, ang tanong ko po, kung sino man yung, pardon me, attorney, because
Lang po.
Sino ba yung animal na nagsulat noon na ganun yung konteksto? Na dapat kasi, pwede namang, ano yun sa Tagalog, attorney, malumanay ang pagkasabi. Kasi hindi po natin pwedeng i-interpret na gaya ng interpretation mo na i-comply ang obligation. The disconnection notice is very, very clear. Pag hindi kayo magbayad, putulin. I think, Attorney, well, I want an honest, because hindi nga ako nakapagtapos, but we were taught that lawyer is a court officer. And one of your obligations is to tell exactly the truth, Attorney.
And I am telling the truth, Your Honor. In
So
fact,
meaning,
entire...
Attorney, if I may interject, pardon me,
Okay po.
mali yung understanding namin sa sulat niyong putulan mo kami.
No, we will exercise our right, and we will, if that comes to that. If you take the entire letter kasi into consideration, we reminded po Caudi of its contractual obligations. We reminded Caudi that their explanation of force majeure was not substantial enough for us to excuse them from their obligations. Therefore, if they don't settle their contractual obligations po,
Yes,
we will have no other choice but to cut the water.
Anyway, Attorney, the fact-finding subcommittee is just trying to solicit an honest information. Hopefully, we can address this perennial problem on water. And I understand, we also understand our limitations, that while you are under oath, we do not necessarily use your words kung ano ba yung hakbang na gagawin. Kasi wala naman tayong power na gano'n. But for purposes of crafting a recommendations to the executive, maybe pwede po namin ikot yung sinasabi mo po. Tama po. Diba? Tama po. So anyway, I understand po sa position mo na, of course, no, you are not at liberty to, well, I think the reason is very obvious, knowing you as a lawyer, but we are not accusing you of giving us false information, Attorney. Okay, last na lang po, Attorney, no, with the presence of the media. As legal counsel po of both representations po, will you give an advice that if COWD cannot comply, you will resort to cutting off the water, ano po, yung sinasabi sa letter po? Honest to goodness po.
Honest to goodness po, we will review and consider all our rights under the contract and in law. One of those options po is cutting the supply.
Pero you are not...
That is my honest opinion, because like I
Yes,
said, we assured this good counsel that we will try to negotiate with the water district. We extended a letter na po to them, inviting them to sit down and meet with us. And I even gave my word to this good counsel that we will be open-minded and try to negotiate and settle and look for an amicable settlement. Now, because of that, sir, I cannot assure you na pagdating ng end of the month, ipuputulan namin yung supply namin, because we don't know yet what will happen dun sa usapan namin with the water district.
I want to know your opinion yesterday kasi sabi ni former board chairman Edmond Talban po na during emergency, the water district can still buy water from Rio Verde. Unang tanong ko po, kung mangyari pong putol, how will you describe the situation? Emergency or not?
Yes, of course.
Emergency. Meaning, at all cost. We are not saying we will resort to at all cost strategies, but certainly because under abnormal situations like emergency, COWD catering consumers that will affect not only the residents but including sa atong ekonomiya po, can can still buy water from Rio Verde.
Mhm. Well, ganito po.
Hypothetical.
First, I would like to apologize for not being present yesterday. We were summoned by the LUA to give our side of this
Yes,
scenario.
but I'm soliciting your opinion po. Honest
Yeah.
opinion. Not
I'm-
necessarily as legal counsel of both companies, attorney.
And yes, I'm leading to that, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm just apologizing for not being present yesterday during the hearing.
We
But
understand, Attorney Rodrigo. What's important is that you are now online.
Second, attorney, if you're not certain with your answer, follow up po. Sinasabi po ng consultant ni Rio Verde po. Sabi niya, sabi ko kasi kahapon, attorney, kasi friendly solicitation po to ng ideas, information. Sabi ko, under abnormal situations like emergency, pwede po ba kayong mabilihan ng tubig? Parang ganun yung sinasabi ko.
actually, I was about to answer naman po. your
Sabi
first
nila, of course, yes po, di ba? Yung tama. Now, but he surmised that if we will sell water directly to water district, may lang naman kasi hindi siya certain, may constitute breach of contract between Rio and Kobe. Your opinion, attorney?
That I would agree. It may lead to the breach.
You are not certain, considering emergency situation.
The emergency situation, I would not say that it would constitute an immediate emergency. It would depend on the capability of Caldi to still supply water. As mentioned, we don't supply them 100% of the water that's being distributed to the people. So we are just, if not maybe majority at most, we supply most of it. But for it to constitute an emergency, I believe that's up to this good council naman to determine.
Hypothetical po. Sa inyo po, because you told us today na the supply of water you delivered to water district does not constitute the whole population. Tama? Parang correct. Now, attorney, what if one of the options of the city government, after cutting off the water, the city will declare state of emergency because of that?
Mhm. That's up to you po. That's really up to this good council. That's really up to you.
Meaning to say, na if ever na magdeklara yung city ng state of emergency,
Mhm.
I do not know what would be your response, attorney. Because with the information of the media, sabi ni Mayor po, gawin niya lahat po sa kapakanan ng taong bayan. That, attorney, thank you, and I will yield the one to our chair. Thank you very much, attorney,
Vice.
for...
Thank you, Vice Chair. Panero, Attorney Rodrigo.
Good afternoon po.
Yes, good afternoon. You're in your law office or in the office of Petro Pacific?
Office of Metro Pacific Water po.
All right, okay. Now, Panero, ito lang. Actually, this is a very politically sensitive na issue, no? Tungkol dito sa tubig. Dahil, alam mo, tubig is, water is life. Water is very essential. Ganito lang, gusto ko lang talaga malaman is, were you part of the legal team that drafted or that negotiated and drafted the joint venture agreement and that of the bulk water supply agreement between Water District and Metro Pacific?
No po. And as I mentioned earlier, I only joined the company noong 2022. So these agreements were already in existence at the time. In fact, when I jumped on board, the negotiations between Rio Verde and Metro Pacific Water have already, well, so to speak, fallen through or fell through, as you may. And
Rio
they were
Verde
already
and Water District?
Rio Verde and Metro
Metro
Pacific.
Pacific. You're referring to the ULSA that was eventually executed between the two companies?
Po. But when it comes to the distribution agreements, that those were in existence dati pa.
All right. Now,
Before they were given to the
so
company.
would it be safe to say, Panero, that you had the chance to more or less review the joint venture agreement and the bulk water supply agreement between Water District and Metro Pacific? And would it be fair to say, or let us say, what's your take on the very provision that every 3 years, yung COBE, automatic yung increase or escalation, di ba?
Yes po.
Yeah, all that you have to do is provide a 10-day notice to Water District. Is that correct?
That's,
Now,
that's more automatic po eh. We just gave them notice that
yes,
the
but it follows that there will be an increase. Once there is the notice, then there will be the eventual increase, right? It follows. Then, you are also aware, Panero, that the Water District, being a public utility, cannot just automatically increase. I mean, not every 3 years, not every 5 years, but there is an infrequency. And if ever they decide to make a hike sa water rate, there has to be public consultation and approval by LUA. So
I agree.
yes, so don't you
But
see
it's
the
their obligation to apply for that in conformity to their obligations. Like I said kanina, ganyan po yung setup namin sa Iloilo, and the water district there requests their increase sa LUA in accordance with our agreement din naman, which is granted din naman.
are you aware, Panero, that yung Metro Pacific mayroon din unsolicited proposal sa Dumaguete City Water District but it fell through?
Maybe before po, pero now po we control the bulk and the distribution in Dumaguete.
Yes, but right, diba, I think it fell through because the specific provision there was a contention as to the provision on how Dumaguete City Water District can cope with or catch up with the provision in the proposal that Metropa can increase every 3 years.
But you're talking about early proposals po, which went through negotiations, which now has been morphed to something else. Ito naman sa Caldi, when we submitted the proposal, we also negotiated. It was analyzed by their technical, financial, and legal teams. And it proceeded. It was approved by the Water District. So,
So right
you
now,
know,
you
the
have
proposal
a
that we referred to is the original unsolicited proposal. But I wouldn't call that as good basis because the parties negotiated and tweaked that even further before we arrived to a final agreement. Eh.
so you have a let us say bulk water supply agreement now with Dumaguete City Water District.
Yeah, not a clear agreement, but the thing is, we took over the distribution, which includes the supply and the distribution to the people.
All right.
Para siyang, yeah.
Yeah, but
I guess a better comparison po, that's why I brought up Iloilo, is because doon po may separate bulk supply company
Yes.
kami. So
but
that
at
would
first
be
it fell through. This deal with the Dumaguete City Water District, it fell through because of that particular provision na somewhat lopsided dahil paano makahabol si Water District kung may every 3 years may escalation kayo sa water rate. At saka si Water District hindi naman basta-basta, di ba? Di ba, Paniero? The logic of it all is that, di ba kung sa power rate, hindi tayo basta-basta maka-increase? Because you have to have public consultation, you have to go through with, you need to secure approval from the ERB, the Energy Regulatory Board. Ganon din sa pamasahe, di ba, sa transportation. Hindi tayo basta-basta na lang maka-increase. Ganon din ang requirement, public consultation, public hearing, and then approval by the LTFRB. Ang hindi ko lang maintindihan, Paniero, is, di ba, yung provision na to, hindi safe. I mean, prejudicial sa
Sir, wala lang
parties.
There are other areas, halimbawa, Zamboanga, yun every year yung contractual increase nila. Every year po, may increase sila sa tariff. Kami po, every 3 years. So, and the obligation of the water district is to apply for their tariff increase to conform to whatever obligations they have. Kami naman po, the increase every 3 years, hindi naman yan para sa amin po eh. It's just to be able for the company, Kobe, to cope with inflationary increases. Na itong inflationary increases po, dictated yan ng gobyerno, ng Philippine government. So, doon kami po yung naiipit. We're advancing these payments now.
Yes, but there is a need for a balance, Attorney Rodrigo, considering that I know meron ka yung contractual obligations, you have yung bangko, mga lending institutions, di ba? Hiram din kayo. So, pero ang dapat naman siguro intindihin natin is ang water district is constrained, merong limitations ang bawat water district dahil ang nag-a-approve ng water rate hike is yung luwa. And then, sa observation ko, hindi every 3 years nag-a-approve yung luwa. At saka
But
meron
Mr.
ding
Chairman-
requirement for every for public consultation and public hearing, di ba?
But Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
we don't know because water district hasn't applied for any increase in the past 10 years. They've never even tried.
Yes, they never even tried. Pero ganoon nga, baka may problema sa financial side.
I
Yung
wouldn't
question
know.
ko, paano tayo nakapunta doon? Bakit nasingit, na-insert yung provision na yan? Hindi naman magkatugma yung automatic increase na every 3 years, yung escalation ninyo na nasa kontrata, at saka water district is somehow constrained by yung regulation ng luwa.
The regulation of LUA lang naman po kasi is mag-a-apply kayo. I understand there's a
Mag-apply,
process
but does it mean that it will be approved automatically?
that takes about a year for the process to carry through. So, if they apply sa LUA, they start count. But the thing is, hindi man lang sila nag-a-apply po eh.
Pero maraming consideration din, Atty. Rodrigo, di ba? Yung NRW, yung mga ganon. Then eventually, kahit saan ka titingin, kahit saan ang gulo, whether that water district is efficient or not, sa pag-reduce ng NRW, in order to sustain, in order to survive, di ba usually ang water district, they resort to a water rate hike.
But Mr. Chair, you have to
And
understand.
they pass it on to the consumers, right?
Mr. Chair, you have to understand, part of their tariff increase would have covered dapat po yung NRW issues nila. It could have also covered any contractual increase they had with Kobe. They could have supported any other programs that they had with that tariff increase.
That's why, ang tanong ko ngayon is, let us look at the factual antecedents. Bago na finalize yung kontrata, bakit nasingit yung mga provisions na contentious naman
Negotiated po yun,
Meron
hindi yung
naman
nasingit
talaga
po.
ang mga
Negotiated
limitations
po.
natin, di ba?
No, but that's a negotiated point po. It was really there. Hindi siya po isiningit. Alam ng parties going into the contract that it was there.
Alam naman ng parties, pero hindi natin alam kung napilit si Water District.
Hindi po,
merong
kasi alam niyo na
external
water
forces.
district obligasyon niya mag-apply for tariff increase sa luway. That's clear in their mandate. Sa kanila manggagaling
It's
yan.
clear in their mandate, but it's not in your contract.
Well, that's obligasyon po nila yan. We don't have to put it in our contract because
But that's why, but you can
Amin po
enforce
yan eh.
Water District dahil may mga regulations. You know that, hindi klaro yung pipilitin natin sila. Wala namang batas na nagsasabi o regulation na nagsasabi na, okay, Water District, you really have to apply. I mean, within this time frame, you really have to apply.
well, their
diba?
contractual
It's their
obligation
call.
should push into that, di ba? Na alam nila may obligasyon sila, alam nila na mataas ang NRW nila,
Yes.
alam nila may mga kailangan silang babayarin, hindi sila mag-apply for tariff increase.
At saka, ganito ko rin, ang tingin ko kasi niyan is, di ba, yung bago yung pinirmahan yung kontrata ni Water District at saka ni Metropac at bunga nitong Kobe na to, alam mo naman na meron subsisting na kontrata si Water District at si Rio Verde, right?
At that time, terminate na po kasi nga because of the legal issue between Rio Verde and Caudi and Water District. Alam ko nga, nagkademandahan yung dalawa na yan.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Paniero, pero I think yung kontrata ni Water District at ni Kobe o ni Metropac, was executed on March 2017. At saka yung termination ng kontrata ni Water District at Rio Verde terminated by compromise agreement sa RTC 38 December 2017. So technically speaking, nagsubsist pa ang kontrata ni Cagayan de Oro Water District at ni Rio Verde, di ba?
Well, you have to remember, sir, kasi nalala ko dati, or ang information that was driven to me, I wasn't there at the time.
That's
again.
right.
But
then
again,
the fact is,
cascaded to me
yes,
is that we came in with the unsolicited proposal,
Yes.
knowing that si RV at saka si Caudi may problema na at talagang matuterminate na yung agreement. So, eventually, we came in to find the solution para paratingin ang tubig sa mga tao. Which is, kundi mapuputol talaga yung tubig ni RV eh. So, lalo nawalan
tingin
dapat
ang
si ano eh,
tubig,
si
di ba?
Water
You
District.
came into the picture, you were the knight in shining armor supposedly ni Water District to supply the, di ba, bulk water dahil may legal challenges nga kay Rio Verde. Pero ang hindi ko maintindihan, Paniero, you came into the picture and then nagsubsist pa ang kontrata ni Water District and Rio Verde. And then, supposedly, dahil okay na nga, sige, terminate na yung kontrata ni Water District at Rio Verde by compromise sa RTC 38. Ang hindi ko maintindihan, pumasok nga kayo. Pumasok kayo on the premise na kayo ang papalit ni Rio Verde dahil may problema. Pero ang hindi ko maintindihan, bakit hindi binit out sa iba na you still have your deliverables under contract? And then wala kayong pipeline. You don't have a physical plan. You don't have a facility. Paano ngayon yan? Where's the logic there? Di ba? Because you still have deliverables, you still have investments.
I think the logic comes in po. When you fill in yung actual information that's needed to make dugtong-dugtong yung mga facts natin. If you recall, there was a legal dispute between RV and the Water District. That we are all on the same page, di ba?
Yes.
Yes. As far as I recall, that the facts were that they were ordered to stop, or COA ordered the contract to be cancelled. So kami po, pumasok kami. Maybe yung manifestation sa court came a little after, but in effect, yung nag-umpisa yung kontrata namin, wala na dapat yung kontrata ni RV noon.
But it is in the contract, Paniero, that bago kayo ma-full yung 100 MLD, kailangan ma-terminate yung contract ni Rio Verde.
Well, terminate na yata at that time. Like I said,
it was included in the provision. I still have a recollection of that specific provision na hindi kayo maka-increase ng supply ni Water District pag hindi ma-terminate yung contract ni Water District at Rio Verde. It's in the contract.
Yes po. Again, as far as I know, the contract was terminated, but we tried to make the transition as seamless as possible. Ang ano po kasi namin is when we came in, we submitted the unsolicited proposal.
Yes.
Nagkaroon po ng public ng Swiss challenge po yan. Meaning, people, other companies or suppliers, or bulk suppliers or other companies were invited to also meet the challenges CDO is facing at the time. Unfortunately, wala nag-submit ng bids or proposals. Therefore, based on the procedures, sa amin po na-award yung kontrata.
Merong issue sa, yung sabi niyo, Swiss Challenge, sa compliance with the publication. Dahil, sa paningin ko, di ba requirement yung sa Swiss Challenge, yung publication in a general circulation. Pero yung ginamit ninyo na newspaper, yung dyaryo, hindi naman talaga recognized sa National Daily. Parang third class. Hindi meron naman dyan yung Philippine Star, yung Philippine Daily Inquirer. Pero never heard yung publication. Tinignan ko.
Again, Mr. Chair, I was not there at the time. 2022 lang ako. But if OGCC said na comply with that requirement, edi, diba? It should have been complied with. We can assume that there's regularity in the decision of the OGCC.
Meron ka bang alam, Panero, kung how was the contract formulated? Was it pro forma or was it digress or taken from the Swiss Challenge?
I
Yung
could only
unsolicited proposal ninyo.
ay wala po ako doon. But basing it on how we do it now, if it were done in a similar fashion, of course, we
Yes.
have the unsolicited proposal, and then all commercial, technical, financial terms are negotiated between the parties and just put into writing. So,
Negotiated, ibig sabihin yung hindi
Swiss,
may may sariling version yung water district. You just give the contract which was taken from your unsolicited proposal, and then it's up to the technical working group of the water district to review it, right? It's not really synthesized.
I guess it would depend on
You
the
just
water
take it or
district we're
leave it or
talking about.
something like that. You review it, you accept it
No,
or not.
basically we talk point per point. And then of course we do a sit down and line per line talaga na review. I guess I'm not exactly sure on how the negotiations went with Calbi because again, I was not there. But comparing it to what we do on an everyday basis now is talagang hinihimay yan. Now, there are other water districts where they prefer their wordings, we consider. There are others naman that they prefer our wordings and give it to them for their review. And they give us their inputs kung meron po sila. There's no one template na ito yung agreement, paki-review. Hindi naman po ganun.
So dito tayo sa pinaka-importanting punto, Panyero, no? Na, okay, may legal challenges nga kayong Rio Verde at doon kayo nakahanap ng window na pumasok. Ang hindi ko maintindihan is, why accept yung Swiss challenge, pwede naman i-bid out sa iba na willing to come up with a competitive rate equal to that of the rate offered by Rio Verde or even less. Di
I
ba?
think that's the purpose of the
Sa
switch.
inyo, you still have deliverables, you have your investments, you still have your deliverables under contract, mas mahal talaga. Bakit doon, wala pa kayong planta, you still have to invest. Di ba, parang ang take ko niyan is, naging middleman kayo. But why resort to a middleman? Nandiyan naman yung Rio Verde.
With all due respect, Your Honor, one, I think that was the purpose of the Swiss challenge.
Okay.
And no one submitted the proposal.
Pero kung may
So-
defect yung proseso ninyo sa Swiss challenge,
Mhm.
magkakaroon talaga ng problema eventually when you sign the contract. Right?
Well, depends. If the OGCC na said naman that we complied with the parameters of the law, we just have to rely on the good governance of the OGCC.
Because at that time, Paniro, there were issues na ang iba daw hindi nakapag-participate dahil hindi nila alam. Kasi yung ginamit na publication, hindi naman kilala. Hindi naman, nandyan naman yung Philippine Star. Nandyan naman yung
the law doesn't specify
You mean
naman
Metro
kung
Pacific cannot
exactly-
afford to publish it in Philippine Star or
Not Metro Pacific who publishes it.
Manila
It's the water
Inquirer?
district po. It's the water district po who chooses the publication po because they are the public entity in this matter. So it's their obligation to publish it properly. Kami naman po kasi, we are the private proponent who gave the proposal. Si water district po, obligasyon po nila yung maghanap ng newspaper or anong of general circulation to comply with the law. So according to the GOCC o GCC naman po, compliant naman sila doon. That's why nakapasa sa kanila to.
Yeah, pero it does not foreclose the possibility, Paniero, na si Water District at saka si Metropac ay mag-usap na lang na itong publication na lang dahil at least mas lesser yung circulation so that not everybody will will know that there is the Swiss challenge. Di ba? Between Water
Again po,
District
that's something
and Metro
that's
Pacific.
something Yeah, but we're talking about possibilities na po I mean, di ba? Hindi naman tayo mag-speculate sa ganyan. Diba?
Pero it does not preclude dahil that is a matter internal between Water District and yung proponent, kayo, yung proponent, yung Metropac.
I don't know kasi normally that's the obligation of the water district, not Metropac po or the private proponent po.
Alright, let's proceed yung sa joint venture. Ang hindi ko lang maintindihan, Paniero, is hindi ba napaka-lopsided? 95% sa inyo, 5% si Water District being the water utility.
Well,
Considering
they
ang
had
water
the-
assets, si Water District, di ba?
Well, they had, no, no, no. Distribution po sila. Iba po to. Nasa
Okay.
bulk price pinag-usapan.
Yes.
So, but, tawag dito, they had the option to invest up to 50% naman po. We did not prevent them from any larger portion of Kobe. It just so happens, they just wanted to be exposed up to the level of 5%. So, decision po nila yan.
Yung exposure nila. So, yung exposure nila, anong equity ginamit nila? Yung isang production well nila when they have 29 production wells.
Ay, yun lang ang in-offer niya sa Kobe po eh. So, hindi ko alam bakit. I don't know, I was not
Would
there.
it be
But
possible that, di ba, I mean, sino naman papayag? Water utility company, bak 5% kami. Better not enter into a let's say, joint venture agreement with Metropac kung 5% lang yung water utility, considering yung water assets. They
well,
have
maybe they're
29
considering na
production
kanila
wells.
kasi, maybe
You
po
don't
kasi
have a
they're
physical plant, Panyero. Metropac, when it entered into a contract, it didn't have a physical plant. Yun nga ang issue doon yung former GM nila, na yung observation niya, bago natanggap, yung sinisintay, yung dinilibate yung unsolicited proposal ninyo, sinabi ng GM na, is it legal? Is it perfectly legal or okay for a contractor of water district na wala namang planta? And you know that, ano naman di ba, ano naman yung deliverables pa kung may investment kayo? Di ba,
well,
parang
because we were
somewhat
supposed to
like-
buy the plant po. We were supposed to have a separate plant pa talaga. But entering into the USP, talaga natural sa umpisa, wala pa kaming planta kasi still to be
Yes,
developed.
exactly, Panero. Wala kayong nga kayong planta sa umpisa. Eh, bakit kailangan kayo? Eh, nandiyan naman si Rio Verde. They could just simply reform the instrument. Kung may question sa iilang provisions doon, they could just simply opted to reform the instrument. And you know that, Panero. But
Well,
but why cancel the contract when the
well, I think-
parties could simply opt to reform the instrument, right?
Sir, I think these are questions better addressed to the water district kasi we did not force ourselves into this situation. It's they had legal issues. Hindi na sila makabili ng tubig kay Rio Verde. So if they, if they wanted to reform something, I think it's better addressed to them, not us po.
They might not be forced the way you see it, but there were external factors that they were forced to enter into a marriage with Metropac.
Well, it was offered to the public for public bidding kaso wala nang ibang kumagat po. So,
Pero kung paano, Panero, kung may problema nga sa the very process itself, yung bidding. Yung sinabi ko, I already pointed it out with my inquiry with the PCC, napakabarat naman yung publication. Metropac kayo?
again, Mr. Chair, the publication is not a Metropac publication. At saka, sabi naman ng OGCC, valid naman yung publication. Or, I mean, if they cleared it, so ibig sabihin, conforme yung publication na ginawa ng Water District noon. So again, it is not Metro Pacific's obligation to post the publication or even choose the publication or even pay for the publication. Si Water District po yan.
Because it appeared, Panero, when this erupted, this issue, marami naman pala players na gusto sumali. Pero sabi nila, hindi daw nila alam, may Swiss challenge pala na ginawa si Water District tungkol sa bulk water supply. Dahil alam nila, at that time, si Water District is in a bulk water supply agreement with Rio Verde.
Again, Mr. Chairman, kung bakit hindi kumagat yung ibang players, I cannot say. Maybe at the time, hindi interesado yung mga heads nila at the time. Maybe they just failed to notice the publication. Maybe, I don't know, I can't speculate kung ano iniisip na ibang players po.
Okay, dito tayo, Panero, ang hindi ko maintindihan, same thing, si Rio Verde man o Metropac, ang kontrata nila with Water District is yung bulk water supply agreement. Pero with Rio Verde, bulk water supply agreement lang. Bakit with Metropac, bakit dalawa? Joint venture agreement at saka bulk water supply agreement, may kaibahan ba dyan?
Yes po. The bulk water supply is just for the delivery of the water. Initially kasi, we were supposed to, well, the POBI kasi, tawag dito, was a joint venture between us para tulungan din namin ang water district to bring him into this transaction dun sa gitna, di ba? But, you know,
Tulungan, Panero, but
the
it's only
joint venture,
5%. May epekto ba si Water District sa marriage ninyo na 5% lang?
again po, we did not limit them to the 5%. Yan po yung option nila on why they only wanted 5%. But even with 5%, na basically, which would have entitled them to 1 seat lang, we granted them 2 seats pa nga sa board.
Okay. So,
Hindi na tumatlo. May I just
Alright,
be
Mr. Vice
clarified,
Chair.
Mr. Chair, if you allow? Pardon me if, attorney, hindi ko nakuha yung inflationary argument po.
Yes, po,
Sabi mo
Mr.
po,
Again po, can you repeat that?
sabi mo po kanina, and I want to be clarified kay baka absent po ako sa klase noon kasi for the information of our resource speaker, ang 4-year degree program ko po ay economics po. Master in economics din po ako. Sabi mo po kanina, yung inflationary po, yung inflation is dictated by government. Are you sure of that? Are you sure of that?
The inflationary component is based on ano?
No. My question is, you made mention kanina, kasi baka lang po absent ako sa klase namin noon. Sabi mo po, ang inflation is dictated by the government.
It's inflation. I may have misspoke, sir, but the inflation rates is based on the CPI released by the PSA po.
Not necessarily dictated by government. I think
It's not arbitrary on us. The rate is not basically hindi po kami
because we cannot simply accuse of government dictating the inflation because actually alam ko na hindi po ako absent po sa klase namin. Attorney,
My
pardon me.
apologies, Vice Chair. My apologies, Vice Chair. But
Yes,
basically, simplify ko lang po.
Kasi po, because this might send wrong signal to the people po na yung inflation is dictated by government po. I believe po, very certain po ako, hindi po ako absent sa klase namin, na yung inflation po ay caused by unavoidable circumstances.
Yes po.
Agree, attorney, agree.
Yes po.
Okay, thank you po, attorney.
Just to clarify, Mr. Vice Chair,
yes, before
again,
that, Attorney Rodrigo, may isisingit lang ako, no? May
Sige po.
sulat tayo na natanggap galing po sa presidente ninyo, si Christopher Andrew B. Pangilinan, dated 15 March 2024. So, ngayon, di ba? Dated 15 March 2024, addressed to the City Council of Cagayan de Oro, and if I may read it, attention, Honorable Edgar Cabanlas. Dear Councilor Cabanlas, we respond to Cagayan de Oro City Council's request to Cagayan de Oro Bulk Water Incorporated, COBI, to extend the deadline imposed on Cagayan de Oro City Water District to settle its outstanding payables. So may extension tayo, Panyero. In consideration of the Honorable Council's request, we inform you that COBI has agreed to defer disconnecting water supply in a matter of 2 weeks extension to count to 12 April 2024. Di ba yung original deadline ninyo, Panyero, was March 31, 2024?
30 days from receipt ng 29 nila eh. 30
Yes,
days.
so that makes it March 31, I suppose. And then ngayon, base sa sulat na ito, it's now extended to 12 April 2024. Meron din yung mga conditions pero hindi ko na lang babasahin. Yung penultimate paragraph, if COUT fails to adhere to the foregoing within the specified timelines, COBI will exercise, sa sinabi na ni Atty. Rodrigo, will exercise all its legal and contractual remedies after 12 April 2024. Duda nga ako kung si Atty. Rodrigo ang nag-draft nito eh. Okay. All right, Mr.
Bakit
Vice
naman
Chair,
po?
you may proceed. All right.
Anyway, attorney, I will raise my case. Thank you. Wala na po akong tanong sa inyo. Thank you
Alright.
very much.
Ito, one more na lang, Panyero.
Yeah.
At this point in time, Panyero, ano ba ang relasyon ni Rio Verde at saka ni Metropac or Kubi?
Other than being contractually tied on some matters, completely separate entities po yan.
Pero sinabi mo kanina na if I remember it right, na merong ulsa. Parang
Yes po.
nag-buyback. Sino, 'di ba si Kobe, si Rio Verde 'yon. So nag-buyback siya. So
Hindi po
entirely
buyback. Hindi po buyback. Balik pera lang. Sa baga nagbigay po kami ng pera sa kanila for the buyout. Hindi po natuloy. So binabalik lang po sa amin yung pera.
So, ganun, parang investment, matatawag na natin dahil yung sa recitals ninyo, sa JBA ninyo, is may restructuring ng investment. Kasali na doon yung ULSA, yung Omnibus Loan Security Agreement. Is that correct?
As I already mentioned, sir, yung unang intention po kasi was we were supposed to invest in RV and buy them out eh. So, hindi nga natuloy yun. So, balik pera. Ganun lang kasi.
Instead of investment, hindi natuloy, di ba may O&M kayo with Rio Verde?
Ano na yun eh. Nung umpisa po, that's why it's after the O&M, parang hindi na kami naka-take over ng plant. So, that's why balik na lang pera.
So,
It's one of the reasons why the OLSA was created eh.
So, klaruhin ko lang, Panero. So, yung Rio Verde is ibang entity talaga
Oh, yes.
from Metropac.
Yes.
Hindi rin kayo interlocking corporation.
I wouldn't say that. No.
Walang yung parang yung interest nga interlocking.
No, Your Honor.
May ibang may grupo sa Rio Verde na may substantial interest ng Metropac or si Metropac may substantial interest through interlocking interest at saka yung stockholders doon sa kay Rio Verde.
None that I am aware of, Your Honor.
Alright, so ganito lang, Panero, I don't know if I could elicit the right answer from you. Pero yung sinabi ko na kanina, yung specific provision lang tayo, yung si Kobe may automatic increase na every 3 years. Basta may abiso lang, tulad nito ngayon, yung sulat. May abiso lang siya na gagawin kay Water District, may escalation na. Right? So, I think it's part of your provision sa kontrata na yung automatic escalation, 3-year escalation clause, di ba? Alright, now, at saka alam mo, Panero, being a lawyer, na yung Water District is may limitation siya sa mga regulations ng NWRB or ng LUA at subject sa public consultation at saka yung oversight function ng City Council. 'Di ba, in a way, yung specific na provision na ito is not really, shall we say, perfectly legal?
No, I would say it is because pagdating po sa bulk, purely commercial term to eh. So, purely commercial in nature, they agreed to it, and it's the water district's obligation para humingi ng increase on their side sa luwa. Now, kung hindi sila po nakapaghingi ng increase sa luwa, talaga mahihirapan sila to comply with their contractual obligations sa amin.
But then there are real regulations. Hindi naman talaga...
The regulations po just provide for procedures.
Yes. But
So, they have to go through those procedures. Obligasyon po nila yan.
pero hindi yun automatic. Alam natin na papayag si Lua. It's still...
Well, we never know because they never tried in 10 years eh.
Do you agree, Panyero? Ito na lang. Do you agree, Panyero, na alam naman natin doktrina ng batas, yung legal doctrine natin na pag may kasunduan tayo, yung sa kontrata natin, then we are bound to comply. We are bound to, di ba, to faithfully execute the provisions of the agreement dahil we mutually entered into it. It's called pacta sunt servanda. You and I know that. But then, if the continued implementation of the provisions of the contract panyero will continue to injure one party or both parties to the contract, di ba, either party has the right to invoke rebus stantibus.
In this case, Your Honor, I would have to disagree with you. Respectfully disagree. Because in this case, external circumstances are not making it difficult for the water district. Rather, it's their failure to apply for a tariff increase sa luwa. So their inaction will not equate to external factors that make it difficult for them to comply with contractual obligations.
What if they apply? But then yung panahon,
They apply po,
time
if
frame,
they apply.
if they
Okay.
apply, yung panahon, hindi naman talaga sila makahabol. But you know that as a trend, yung usually, umaabot ng 1 taon or 2 taon before their petition gets approved. Or secures
Based on-
approval, before they get to secure approval from LUA. And you
Yeah,
know
based
that.
on our-
So, hindi
based on-
talaga makahabol si Water
One-
District sa contractual provision ni Water District sa inyo. And you
Yes,
know that.
but-
Let's be realistic. Kahit sasabihin niyo, okay, automatic 3-year increase, kaya ni Water District yan dahil as long as they apply. And you know that, let us say, assuming argumento that they apply, pero hindi naman agad-agad nabibigyan ni Luwa ng approval because there are still requirements. And you know that as well.
I agree. And the thing is, hindi man lang subukan mag-apply eh. So, how will we know kung si Lua magdi-deny? How will we know kung si Lua will grant? How will we know kung gano'ng katagal ba talaga for Caudi to get it?
Yeah,
If
but
they don't know.
that calls for speculation na akong si Water District mag-apply. Ang ano naman natin, yung sword of Damocles nito is bakit nandyan yung provision na yan? Na alam naman natin, for all intents and purposes, hindi naman, for practical purposes, hindi naman talaga makukomply ni Water District dahil may yung time frame. Right?
Ako, with all due respect, Mr. Chair, and with all due respect to the Good Water District as well of Cagayan de Oro, yung iba po namin water districts na kasosyo, they don't have that problem.
They don't have
So-
that problem. But, you were not aware as to the factual antecedents sa problema ninyo bago natanggap yung unsolicited proposal ninyo with Dumaguete City Water District.
But again, kasi po, that's a different setup because yun, distribution po yun eh. That's not the bulk water supply. Like I said, the good example would be Iloilo because dun po, meron talagang separate bulk water supply agreement kami with the water district. So,
But
that
still,
would be a more fair comparison.
but to
Sabagay.
wrap it up, Panero, you still don't have an answer sa tanong ko, why we have to resort to you? Logically, well, di ba, hindi na natin gamitin yung legal sophistry. Ang hindi ko lang maintindihan is bakit hindi rin mo masagot, diretsohan, is nandyan si Rio Verde providing us at least a much cheaper water rate. Pumasok kayo, may deliverables pa pala kayo, di lalong mahal ang yung singil ninyo dahil you still have your deliverables under contract. Sometimes, dito naman, si Rio Verde, nandyan na. All we have to do is reform the instrument. Why do we have to resort to...
Again, sir, kung yung pagdating sa ganun on why water district entered into a contract with us, baka mas mainam tanongin mo po si water district. Ngayon, questioning kung if it was simple as Rio Verde giving cheaper water, then again, we go back to the legal issue between Rio Verde and the water district. I don't know how more direct I could answer your question, Your Honor, kasi these are matters between the water district and Rio Verde, and water district's decisions alone. Kami lang po, we just came in, tried to find a way to deliver water to the water district.
So, Panero, so sabi mo, water district niyan. So, ibig sabihin, ang may responsibilidad niyan is yung board ng water district because it's their call. Sila ang nagsiset ng policy decision ng water district, right?
Yes po. We have no control over the water district po. They do what
So,
they...
whatever it is na nandito tayo sa kontrata nito na may contentions, both parties, it's because water district through its board of directors entered into a contract with Metropac. Is that correct?
Yes po.
No further questions. Okay, thank you. With that, we dispense with the testimony of Attorney Rob Rodrigo. Panero, maraming salamat talaga sa panahon na binigay mo. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
enlightening us with your answers. And it's a pleasure. Thank you for gracing itong yung fact-finding namin. So,
Thank you po.
Panero, see you soon.
Salamat din po, attorney. Salamat.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you.
All right, so let's call for a 5-minute break. I'll call for a 5-minute break. Then we proceed with the testimony of Engineer Jong Batar, the former General Manager of Cagayan de Oro Water District. I call for a 5-minute break. All right. Oh. Mabalik na ta sa atong kining itigayon nga fact-finding kay para mahumanan niya ang atong bisita si Engineer Jong Batar, ang kanhi General Manager sa Water District. Alright, session resumes. Secretariat, kindly do the oath to Engineer Jong Batar.
Good afternoon, Engineer. For the swearing in of the resource speaker, I call to stand Engineer Bienvenido V. Batar Jr. Please state your name and your position or capacity in relation to the subject of the inquiry.
I am Engineer Bienvenido V. Batar Jr. I am the former General Manager of the CdeO City Water District.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Engineer.
Ah,
Alright, Mr. Vice Chair, you may proceed.
Basin pwede lang katingali maglingkod, sir.
Yeah, pwede na akong madala ni.
Oh, yes, sir.
Alright,
Para
pwede.
comfortable kayo ka, sir. Okay. Engineer, mayong hapon, no?
Mayong hapon, Mr. Vice Chairman.
Wala ko magdawam, ikaw si Engineer Batar. Magay ko laagan kaayo. But anyway, thank you for coming, no? Your family name sounds familiar. Kay Kuan, no? Nadungog ba na to pag-ayo, engineer, ang what we discuss with Attorney Rodrigo o Juan? I think klaro tingali kayo. No?
Yes, sir.
May I know if at that time sa napirmahan nga contract, unsa imong position at that time? Aside from being the general manager, nabay mga attached position or responsibilities aside from being the general manager? May I know, please?
At the time of the signing of the agreement between Metropac and the Water District, I was not the general manager.
Okay.
I was the assistant general manager for admin, finance, and commercial services. And at the same time, I was designated then as the chair of the Joint Venture Selection Committee when the project was bidded out.
Okay. You have this TWG, Technical Working Group.
If you mean the Joint Venture Selection
Yes,
Committee,
po.
yes, that was it, sir.
So, klaro na to. Technical Working Group.
Actually, strictly speaking, the Joint Venture Selection Committee, the JVSC then, also had a technical working group. So, strictly speaking, those are two different bodies, but they are of course interrelated as far as that project is concerned.
On the part of Water District, ilan kayo?
I'm counting.
Yes po.
I think, well, my memory does not serve me well at this time, but then I would say there were 5 of us, and then we have two I'm not sure what's the proper name, but then we have two uh, members who are non-voting because they're not part of the organization. One came from the local water utilities administration, and the other came from the office of the government corporate council.
Okay, I will focus more on the water district in which you were part of the composition, Sir GM. No? Were you aware kung ang solicited proposal is granted, kana bang you need to be assisted by, for example, a lawyer who may review the unsolicited proposal or who may review the entirety of the contract. May I know if at that time, on the part of Water District, dunay abogado?
The water district itself did not have a lawyer. However, the JVSC had a, as I've said, I forgot the proper name for it, but then had OGCC, an OGCC lawyer who sits during its deliberations.
But I mean, okay, for the record, wala pong galing sa Water District po.
We did not have a lawyer, yeah, from the water district. We do not have a lawyer in the roles
At
of the
the
water district
time,
at that time.
wala kayong, say, legal counsel? Wala kayo? Or during the representation, hindi po kasama yung lawyer po? Magkaiba po kasi yun, engineer. At the time, andon ka pa,
Yeah,
may abogado bang empleyado or may legal office ba kayo doon?
wala, sir. We have a legal, a retainer, I should say,
Yes.
who cannot by the stipulations in the 2013 NEDA guidelines, who cannot be part of the JVSC. It has to be employees and regulatory bodies like OGCC and LUA.
Okay, so for the record, wala pong abogado.
Yes, sir.
Okay. As member of that composition, Sir GM, no, we know nga this is a huge investment. No? Hindi to basta-bastang kontrata. Diba? We know the gravity of the contract. No? Mabigat to. Hindi ba dapat lang na kasi may retainer kayo or for the sake of possible entering the contract, you need to be assisted a lawyer. Hindi nyo ba naisip na para bang, okay ba? Parang ganon.
Yes, of course, sir. We recognize that we need a legal advice
Yes ba?
in that case.
Pero hindi kayo kumuha.
What do you mean? We could not.
You
hire-
recognize that you need to be assisted by a lawyer. And yet, hindi kayo kumuha. Aside from merong retainer, hindi naman siguro namumulubi yung water district para hindi kayo kahit pansamantala kumuha ng isang abogado po to review the contract, Sir GM.
Well, if that is the case, if that is what you mean, then we have the OGCC to represent us in legal matters, and we have our retainer whom we can go to review anything that we would want him to review. Actually,
Pero did you do that prior to seeing the whole contract po? Because we are trying to establish po. Kasi normally, if, for example, makita naman natin sa regular courts, pag ang isang individual po is parang alanganin, di ba? Alam naman natin na even without you coming to the court with a lawyer, the court will appoint someone to assist, especially on legal matters. Yun po, parang ganon. Because we are trying to establish here, Mr. Resource Speaker, Engineer Batar, sir, kung legally educated po ba kayo sa pasukan nyo po, even with the presence of OGCC and the LUA, because na-invite na po natin, o may mga prior statement na po, yung LUA, na wala kaming ano sa kontrata nyo. Ang pakialaman daw, dapat nila is yung the impact of water rates, but not necessarily nga they can give their advice to go. Okay yan. Tama?
Yeah, but then in every meeting of the TWG, as you say, and the Joint Venture
Yes po.
Selection Committee,
Yes po.
the OGCC lawyer is always there, and the LUA representative is also there, which to my mind was adequate advice already that we would need when we discuss the matter with Metro.
You made mention that because of the presence of lawyers coming from LOA
No,
and,
the
and
OGCC.
OGCC, adequate na po.
Yeah, at that
Meaning,
time
okay.
I felt we were okay. And plus, if
And don't you know that lawyers differs in opinion?
obviously, sir, yes. In addition to that, we
Yes,
also have our legal retainer, whom I can go to and consult every now and then, if necessary.
But how open the retainer attended this hearing po?
He cannot attend because it's not in the rules that he will be a member of the
Who sets
the-
who sets the rules at that time?
It's the NEDA guidelines
NIDA
for joint
guidelines.
ventures.
Okay. Okay. If it is in consonance with the NIDA guidelines, okay. But hindi nyo ba naisip po na aside from you believe adequate knowledge about the legalities, hindi ba kayo nag-isip na, baka pwede tayong kukuha ng opinion or ganito, you relied too much on the presence of the two lawyers na sinasabi natin galing sa OGCC.
May I clarify, sir?
Yes, po.
The only lawyer was from OGCC. The
Oh.
LUA representative was not a lawyer.
Wala. Okay. Di ba isa lang po? Tama po.
Well, at that time, we did not see it as a deficiency. We saw that it was enough to engage with the discussion with Metropac.
Hindi nyo po nakita nga there was or there is a necessity for a lawyer hired by your representations like COWD, parang ganon. Hindi po nakita na necessity po at that time. Considering malaki tong kontrata eh.
Well, perhaps it. I should say, Mr. Vice Chairman, that having a lawyer in the water district would be very good.
Very
I'm
good.
not saying that we don't need a lawyer like that.
Yes.
However, we did not have one, and so we have to contend with that and rely on the OGCC lawyer, and as an additional backup, consult with our legal retainer when the needs so arise. Unfortunately, I should say, we did not have an in-house lawyer.
At the time.
Yeah.
Okay, sabi mo po nga sana, di ba? Sana po, no? Kung it would be better sana, di ba? Kung meron. But at that time ba, Mr. Resource Speaker, may I know, kaya nyo bang magbayad ng abogado, halimbawa?
We have an item for senior corporate attorney in our plantilla, which was difficult to fill at that time. Mr. Vice Chairman, we constantly advertise it, and
Walang nag-apply?
either that or the application was not really pursued by the applicant. I do not have
Okay.
specific recollections already.
Okay. Listening from our chair kanina, sabi niya, yung nabuo na yung contract, ano yon, pro forma or ready-made contract coming from Metro Pacific? Tanong ko lang naman.
What I remember was that yes, we have a draft.
Who did the draft? Meaning there were two versions coming from the COWD and Metro Pacific.
During there were two stages, Mr. Vice Chairman,
Okay po.
that happened. One was during the I should say when they submitted an unsolicited proposal, and so there was a discussion on what would be the terms and conditions that this proposal would have, and then this what do you call this? This terms and conditions will be submitted to the board
Yes po.
for them to either accept the Metropac as an original proponent, and then when that happens, then the COWD board would form a joint venture selection committee, which would oversee the process until the award of the project. So in the first stage, when we were discussing what terms and conditions would we want to have, then we already have some sort of a draft there.
Okay.
Something like that. And so we have something to work on when the proponent was declared as original proponent. We have something to work on. It was not just a contract. So we have sort of I should say a draft, something like that. But then it's nowhere near what we finally came up with in the end.
Dili duol sa tinuod?
Well, the terms and conditions were more or less there, but then napamagay mga details nga kinahanglan i-discuss during the negotiation stage after the acceptance of Metropac as original proponent.
Were some of the drafted, sabihin natin, counter contract po, nasali ba doon sa sa Kubi yung final draft? Were some of the contents of the draft were considered ba sa final draft?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
May I know what are those?
Wow.
Na possibly incorporated in the final draft. Gusto kong malaman yon. Kasi sabi mo, may draft kayo na ipasok doon, yung some of the provisions. So, knowing andun ka po, ano yon? Na na-consider.
Well, what I can remember at the moment is that the schedule for the delivery, something like that, and the escalation of the price
Yes, yes.
was there, and then the options for the proponent to get water from And so, yeah, essentially those are the things that I can remember. Then if you want, then we can actually go through the records at the water district.
Okay.
But then anyway, what I remember is exactly that. The proponent would have three options to source water from, and it is either by building their own treatment facility. They can also buy an existing treatment facility, or they can uh, buy water from an existing facility and
Facilities.
resell to the water district. Uh, and there is also a clause in the contract that if we would require them to either buy or build their own facility, there is a certain equivalent extension, I believe. My memory does not serve me well. But then, in any case, the water district, if it so requires, uh, the proponent to fast track uh, the what do we call this, uh, the buying of an existing facility or the building of their own treatment plant, there's an equivalent extension of the contract.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
I remember, sir.
I think the three options were thoroughly discussed prior to you coming here, engineer. No. Um, uh, it, engineer, lisod kaayo ni atong kahimtang karon.
Yes, sir.
I will focus more on because I will yield the legal questions later on to our chair because he is a lawyer. But I will focus more on granting the contract is not legally questionable. Well, because the two parties agreed. Kasi sabi naman ni Attorney Rodrigo kanina, di ba? It's better na we address this to the COWD, no, at that time to which naagkakaroon. I know nga from what I knew, engineer, very religious ka nga tao. Because I know nga you are related to the Batar in Cagayan de Oro. Sa imo lang, is it moral musulod ta aning kasabutan?
What was that, sir?
Is it morally correct na
Morally
musulod
correct.
ta aning kasabutan?
I I did not see any question regarding that at that time.
Wala
sir.
ka at that time.
Yes, sir.
Now that nangyari na to, wala ba ninyo ni nakita kani adto engineer nga posibleng moabot ta ani because somehow one of the functions of the TWG is also to consider the future. Tama?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So hindi wala nimo na makita like the effects now.
Specifically, what are the
The water rate increase
Okay.
kung acceptable po ba?
Okay, let me
Yes po.
let me state what was prevailing at that time, sir. And the water district then, at the time that we were contemplating or we were discussing this thing with Metropac, had a water rates adjustment schedule that were already presented to the public in a public hearing. And the first part of that water rates adjustment schedule was implemented already. Actually, the approval was in 2011, but then eventually the implementation dragged on to 2014. There were two additional water rates adjustments after that, which we have already presented to the public in a public hearing, but which LUA did not yet approve. So that's the situation at that time. And so we in the water district believe then that we have already something to bank on to allow us to comply with our contractual obligations when we enter into this agreement. And from our experience then, when we presented our water rates adjustment in the early part of 2011, I cannot remember the exact time. We had it approved within the year. And so from that most recent experience of ours, we did not see anything that would make it difficult for us to comply with the 3-year adjustments. However, after that, when we submitted our request to LUA to implement the last two, well, the first of those last two stages, LUA policies changed. And so they denied our request. This was in, if I remember correctly, 2016 or early part of 2017.
Meaning your petition to increase the water rates were denied by LOA?
Yes, sir. We made a request.
When was that,
I cannot remember the exact dates, but then it should have been towards the end of 2016, I think, or early 2017. I'm not very sure. No.
No,
But then it was during the time that we have already sort of firmed up our discussions with Metrobank.
dinhilang ta sa 2017 nga na-realize na ning kontrata. Sorry. You made mention nga at that time, nana mo yung mga proposals for increase. Diba? Okay, na ug walay problema at that time. Probably because at that time, when you propose for increase, nakita sa Cagayan de Oro nga mga consumers that that your proposal for increase or petition for increase is reasonable. Tama? Engineer? Meaning, during the public consultations, walay problema sa inyong request for petition for increase. Correct? Wala ay nakita. Unlike now, nga mitiyabaw gyud ang tao. So dinhita sa atong na-realize ng agreement with Kobe kininapol. Kobe. No? Kaya nga kung nakita manggudaan ni engineer ba, you entered the contract 2017, di ba? Na-realize ning tanan dinhita. Engineer ka nang ato ning aniyon kay parehas man tataga Cagayan de Oro dali ra man tingali ta magkasinabot, no? Ang gisudlan ninyo kontrata, engineer, no, sa Lactod is of public interest, diba?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Of course, yes.
No doubt. Oh. Okay. Nga kung posible, kung doon ay petition for increase, either approved by both parties between COA and Metro, ay COWD and Metro Pacific, because that's an agreement, meaning binded by both parties. Diba? Wala may problema tingali na kay basta magkasabot, matod pa ganyan ni Atty. Rodrigo, may problema kami sugot man sila. Pero wala ba ninyo ginahuna nga kining increase, diba? Nga naa sa kontrata, maybe na may resulta is not acceptable to the public, meaning the contract itself is not realistic. Pero bag, okay naman tingali ni mag-agree ta, okay, kolektahan lang ninyo. O ba mo maghuna-hunaan na engineer ba kay? Siyempre, may na, bay, sabot na bay. Ang palit na to sa tubig, gis, sabot-sabot na. Ibaligyan na to ning sagatos. Knowing the price of this bottled water cost only like 10 pesos. Di ba? Di ba tiya? Kaya nga itong tanahon, unsaon na ito ni pagbaligya kung wasay mo palit. Muraging unana ang nahitabo. So, sorry, engineer ba, but given the present situation, na may nahitabo, diba? karon lang atong honest nga assessment. Ang kontrata ba beneficial sa general public? If it is legal, if it is moral, question na kayo, is it beneficial to the general public, engineer, given the present situation now? Because the TWG, when they scrutinize everything in the table, dapat gitanaw ang future considerations.
I will be honest with you, sir.
Yes,
When
yes
we
po.
conducted the evaluation and the negotiation at that time, I believe, did due diligence on our part. We made projections, we made anticipations of what we believe will be in the future. However, things like changes in policy in LUA, for example, we did not know that they will change the policy that water rates adjustments would only have a life of 5 years. And unfortunately, when that hit us, we did not know that it would be something that would we would have something that we would have to contend with. And I was informed, I'm not very sure, I was informed that this was even shortened now to 3 years. And so, like you said, a 3-year schedule for increases would be something, difficult now, given the present situation. But that was not the situation at that time. Isa sa mga butang nga wala na mo na-anticipate is the COVID-19 pandemic. When it happened in 2020, we thought initially that it would last for only 3 months. However, the first month that it hit us, our revenues, our collections dropped to maybe a third of what we used to collect before the pandemic, and we did not recover from that until until even now, the time that I left. Our collections, our revenues just barely went up to the level of pre-pandemic times. I mean, those are things nga dili gid nato tingali ma-anticipate, Mr. Vice Chairman. But I tell you very honestly that at the time that we did the evaluation, we did due diligence. We, as much as we can, tried to anticipate contingencies. However, the things that happened now are, well, beyond what we could anticipate.
Engineer, thank you for that information. When we project something or make projections, na ay mga factors to consider, correct? Ba? May I know if that projections is data-driven or imagine?
Of course, data-driven. We looked at historical figures of the water district. We looked at how we could expand services, how we could generate more revenues. It's not always through water rates increase. It's also market growth, sir. And we believe that we could cover things like those increases with that. However, there were total game changers that happened after that, which we were not able to anticipate.
Is an anticipation may be considered as part of projection? Wala. Kasi sabi mo kanina, hindi mo nakitang may pandemic.
It never happened in the past, sir, so
Yes,
we could
po.
not anticipate
Yes po.
something
Okay.
like that.
Anyway, thank you for that information, Engineer. Dito tayo sa 5% at 95% sharing. Prior to that question, may I know if na-project niyo ba at that time the huge impact of the every 3 years increase? Meaning because the contract is, what is stipulated in the contract is 30 years and maybe renewed for another 20 years. That's the contract, right?
Yes, sir.
So at that time, how much?
What do you mean, how much?
Kasi every 3 years, yung increment, correct? That is what is stipulated in a contract. Every 3 years, automatic increase. Every 3 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Kung halimbawa, 16 pesos ngayon, di ba? 16 pesos. Times the, ano ba? In 30 years, how much will it cost?
Times that there will be an increase.
So, how much? I'm not fan of mathematics. You're an engineer. I believe,
3 times 10.
sige.
That's 30 pesos.
What I remember was that at that time, the prevailing or the historical inflation rate was around, if I'm not mistaken, around 3%
See?
per annum.
So-
And so a three-year implementation of the water rates will be 10%.
Malaki hindi.
10% is, I should say, tolerable. Well, we look at it in different ways, but then, for example, so water districts are even
Practical po. Let's be pragmatic about the every 3 years increase.
Yeah, we reckon nga our market growth, sir, our revenue growth generated from growth in connections comes up to almost 5% of our, meaning we can increase revenues by about 5% or so every year without even an increase in water rates, merely through market growth, sir. I mean, increases in connections, increase in consumption because the growth of the commercial part of the commercial component of our customer base was also increasing. So about that
no?
much.
Okay.
These are rough figures, sir, that
Rough
I
figures.
remember from memory.
But you're an engineer, no? Is the every 3 year increase exponential or not?
Well, it builds on,
Exponential increase.
it builds on, it's compounded exponential is something that's very, what do we call this?
Subrasad.
Sobra rasad.
No, okay.
It's compounded, I should say.
Okay. Okay, actually, this was asked by the chair, addressed to Attorney Rodrigo, but Attorney Rodrigo said nga, it's better nga we ask you. No? At that time, ang COWD, 5% ragad ang kaya.
What I was saying was that even without an additional water rates increase, we could generate increase in revenues of about 5% from increase from growth in number of connections and increase in basically the commercial component of our customer base. That's what I remember, Mr. Vice Chairman.
No, I mean, my question is, ang 5%, dili ba dihado?
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes.
para di
Yes,
ka maglibog,
yes.
Engineer Batara, ang pasabot ni Mr. Vice Chair, kato sigurong sa joint venture.
Joint
agreement.
venture, yes.
The 95%
Yes,
and
joint
the
venture.
5%.
95.5%.
Yes, 95.5
Yes,
formula.
kana siya.
Well, at that time,
Didn't you find disadvantage? Wala ba nyo nakita nga? Di ba dihado mi? 5% ra?
well, it's also part of what the water district would want to put up as equity in the joint venture.
Maulang gyud.
That's the equity that we put up. It's not just one production well, but 2 production wells that were essentially used very intermittently by the water district. And
Use intermittently or non-functioning, wala magamit. Because that's according to ni GMB, ha?
yeah, one of those was non-functional already, but then one is still functional, which we could use, and in fact used intermittently by the water district at the time of the negotiations.
May I know if nasayod ka lang, kana bang 5% karon operational dili? Or gigamit?
The equity that we have.
Yeah, yes, kanang because kwan man na, it's not a cash investment but a property assist at 5%.
I'm not sure if it's being used now, but then by Kobe, you mean? Or
Yes,
No,
karon
no,
sa COWD or
by
part
COWD.
of the
one of those
5%.
production wells is non-functional, sir. The what do we call this? The well itself somehow did not produce water already, but one is still functional. I'm not sure now if it's being used by the water district, but then I know for a fact that it's still functional.
At that time usa lang.
Ang
Usa lang ang nagpangduha siya,
Oh,
pero
duha
usa
siya.
lang
Isa
ang
lang ang functional.
gigamit. Kulba sab day kaayo no kay misugot ang kubi nga bisan 5%. Okay na balag wala nag-andar bisan pag wala nag-andar ang duha total 95% wala na nyo makita engineer. Amis to goodness.
Well, the equity that we put up, that we could put up,
Who decided ang composition sa board of directors? Kay ikaw GM man ka no?
No, I was not general
technical
manager at that time.
Membro ka sa composition sa nagtuon. Okay? Maugid ang ilang gipos or because tungod kay at that time ang water district cannot really afford to invest more than 5% because according to Attorney Rodrigo, ang Metro Pacific does not, wala nag-prevent sa inyo to invest more than 5%. So, atong pasabot lugar ba nga, sugot lang lugar ta nga, okay naman tingali. Okay rin ni 5%. Wala pa na yung gitanaw. Considering nga ang Metro Pacific at that time, walay physical plan, sa di ba kata lutong Macau, no? Sa baka ni unya, wabagitanaw na to, although there are three options no in the contract nga to buy from existing bulk water supply, di ba? O sa uban pa no nga katong tulog options. Pero grabe no at that time alingasa na kayo tong mga empleyado sa una. I think nadumduman pa nato ang case ni Mulawan no. I mean ba engineer no in a way kwan malaning ato no. We want honest solicitation of information no. Kaya ang atong purpose ani engineer nga kana bitawng maka-formulate ang city sa mga sibo nga solusyon niining problema nato karon. While you are under oath, we do not intend nga someone or somebody or a group dalhon nato ni sa korte. So, I hope ba nga mahimo kaya wala man ta nag-ingon dinhi nga na ay kasuhan nato. Wala ka naman dinhi kay I don't think nga with your experience, di ba? Logic would tell us nga why invest only 5%? Dili ba ka mohaabot ang panahon nga ma-hostage ta ani sama ni ining nahitabo karon? In fact, prior to this water problem, there were actions taken by some of our city councilors requesting the signed contract to be divulged in public, not for scrutiny but possible review kay ba sindunay makita. Pero I mean this is my opinion, engineer, kaya dito gusto pa sayaw-sayaw ta. I believe nga there was a deliberate intent, diba? To really put the public in the future disadvantageously. Kaya imagine, I think you have heard a while ago, diba? There was no instance where a government entity like COWD is being held hostage by a private company. There was none. Siwa ba ninyo nakita nga by investing malanganin tani nga our 5% can be easily outvoted? Wala, kay I don't think nga because wala man ka giugbok dia as general manager. I believe you rose from the ranks. Gani nahimo kang general manager because of your experience. I mean, di ba? I mean, ang former general manager si Beha, the contract was approved by a collegial decision by the COWD board. Di ba? O sige, gihatag. But because part of the process is to have it reviewed, gipa-review niya. She signed it, but gibutang iyang observations dito sa taas. Now, I mean, technical working group or whatever you call it, wa ba na makita? Nga, we are putting our people in danger. I mean, grabe kung this is not an ordinary investment. This is not an ordinary contract. Because, again, this contract between the two animals is imbued with public interest. Not the COWD. Pila naman mo diya? Diba? I mean, pasensya engineer, no?
Are you...
Yes,
May I
yes.
interject? Are you saying, Mr. Vice Chairman, that the technical working group did not do a proper job while the general manager then and the board of directors
Categorically, I'm not implying on that.
Yeah, but then that's
but
what
my
I'm
point
hearing.
is, as part of the composition at that time,
Mr. Vice Chair, may I ask, is there a question here? Gusto lang ako maklaro para.
yes,
Subak
ang ako
ni
magpasabot,
Engineer Bata?
ang 5% ba, tama ba?
So
At
that's
that
the
time,
question.
at that time,
That's the
sir,
question,
when
Bata.
at that time, sir, when the unsolicited proposal was submitted, the proponent already said that their proposal is for a 95
Percent. Okay,
sharing.
okay.
And then-
Okay, let me, pardon me, di lang ko gusto mabiyan. But according to Attorney Rodrigo, wala mi nag-ingon. Di ba kaganina? Ningon si Attorney Rodrigo, wala mi mag-prevent sa Water District to invest only 5%. But the unsolicited proposal, gidawat ninyo ina nakasayon?
Yeah, proposed a 95-5
Percent.
sharing, and then in the discussion after that,
Yes po.
they also disclosed what could be possible equities that the water district can put up. Obviously, we cannot put up cash.
Dili. Ano niyo na to, engineer? Ang unsolicited proposal is in 95% take it or leave it?
No, no, no.
Hey, ingon man siya si-
yes, sir. They disclosed that we could change if we want to. But then that was what was the proposal as it stood when it was given to us, and we looked at it. Yeah, obviously, nobody in the water district did not find anything wrong with it, including us in the technical working group.
So, Okay, wala mo nakita sa 5%. So wala nyo makita nga grossly disadvantaged ni. Wala nyo kita.
What I remember was that when the proposal was made,
Yes, engineer.
the board composition would be just one seat belonging to the water
Yes
district
po.
out of 5. However, during the discussions, one of the directors said during the board meeting that would be difficult. I mean, there would be no check and balance for the water district when there's only one coming from the water district. And so the board composition was changed. It was increased to 7 with 2 coming from the water district.
Okay,
That was the- that
last
was
na
the
lang
choice.
because I will yield to our honorable chair. Niyon na lang nato no kay ingon ka man nga at that time wala mo nakita sa nga dautan ingon ana no. Anyway, dito na lang ta sa mga tao kung dawaton ba ang ato mga rason di. After all, ang kining committee is not for us to determine no, kung
Yeah. Yes, sir.
tama ka. But to my point of view, grossly disadvantaged. But anyway, ingon ani na lang, engineer ba? Kung okay lang ka, no, nga tawag na tog TWG. Okay lang?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay lang?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Okay, to simplify.
kay you cannot certainly say ug unsa gyud to. So let's call it TWG. Ang recommendations ba, well, I mean, ingontan lang, dili recommendations. But ang findings sa TWG ba or recommendations ba can or will prevail over the decisions of the board of directors water district, meaning your recommendations may be accepted or not or necessary nga when you need to adhere our recommendations.
No, sir. We were a technical working group at that time, so we can make our report
Yes.
to the board, who may decide otherwise or change anything that is in it. Obviously, that's well within their prerogatives.
Meaning, at the end of the day, the composition of the board of directors, sila ang dunay final say.
Yes, sir. As in any corporation, in fact.
Yes, okay. So, the composition of board of directors, klaro na to, may ignore your recommendations. Posible na.
Yeah, possibly not. But it's academic, sir. I'm not-
Yeah. What I mean is, because 5%, no, niya, ang TWG man sad, ang sugot ra sad, more say amo. Meaning, wala gyoy, let's say, for example, financial consideration na aside from, instead of the property, no, ang equity, basin doon na tay gamay da nga madugangan, wala gyud dag naghuna-huna gyud na lang ana. So mangutan na lang ta at that time, although it has been said, no, the composition of the board at that time were composed of the appointees of the former mayor.
Let me recall who were in the board then. In 2017, was that?
Yes. When the contract was realized, yes, po.
When the contract was signed, the composition of the board,
Or bisan majority of the board were Oka's appointees.
yeah, three
Three.
were appointees of the former mayor. Two were
Two
appointees
from Tungkoy Mano.
the previous, yeah.
3, Engineer Batar would be, let us say, Attorney Dilencia,
Attorney Diligencia,
Edmund
Mr. Edmund
Talban,
Talban,
and Concepcion Roa Kiblat.
Yes, sir.
And 2 for the previous, Dongkoy's appointees were
Would be,
Sok Del Rosario
and
and
Joel
Joel Baldilovar.
Yes, sir.
Follow-up question. Thank you for that confirmation. Sir Engineer no, Batar. Ano kung pangutana ba? Sadyang ang contract na pirmahan na, no? Sadyang ang contract na pirmahan na, tingali, pwede ni mo tubagon kung doon na lang kayo knowledge about it. Mangutana ko, was there a
Was there a?
time nga sadyang na-realize ng contract ang atong mayor nanawag sa atong mga board of directors nga tanawa daw ninyo na ang contract. Kay nag-alingasa man ni si Eric Salcido Leon Gan kanang kay we know nga mga appointed sila ni Oscar Moreno. Nga while Mayor Moreno at that time representing the city is not party to the contract, but we cannot avoid actually nga if the mayor intervenes at that time, no, kung nakita manggaling niya, honest to goodness, nga wala ni problema. Kay at that time actually na problema kay nangayo si Eric Salcido, nangayo si Leon Gan. Was there a time nga gipatawag ba ang mga board nga, oy, ato daw niyon sa mani, wala ka nakadomdo.
Wala, sir.
Wala ka.
I did not.
Wala ka, I want to solicit your honest opinion. Because according to our chair kagahapon, wala nakaperma si Oscar Moreno sa contract, no? But he was there during the signing as evidenced by newspaper accounts. Naalugar dito, no? Mangutan na lang ta, kung nakadumdum ka, si Moreno or somebody told you nga, uy, after the signing si Moreno nagpa-interview on national TV anchored by Cheryl Cousin. Nga, this is it. This is now the solution of our water problem in Cagayan de Oro.
I was not aware of that, sir.
Dili ka aware. But kabalo kang he was there.
Yeah, because I was there during
naasa ka
during
during
that
the
affair
signing.
as well, sir.
This is an honest solicitation of your opinion, Engineer. No? And I hope this is, your opinion is not contrary to experience. Don't you think that the mere presence of the mayor speaks of influence?
Influence.
I mean, kay kung si Waniwan pa to dito, imbitaron kay si Waniwan is nobody.
I did not think it that way, sir, because
Yes.
when the contract was finalized for signing, we spent quite a good time at the LUA office because we went there to discuss a few more things that we would like to. Well, not me, but then the general manager and the board actually.
Yes po.
And they were able to,
Honest opinion.
iron everything out and signed the joint venture agreement.
Iron out meaning dunay mga kumot at that time na kinahanglan plansahon.
Kinahanglan i-resolve, sir.
Unsa man
if you-
tong mga kumot dito nga
I-
gi-iron out pa man.
I cannot recall now,
Yeah,
sir, but then
kinahanglan
there were a few things that going to Manila then were things that needed to be discussed further and clarified further with Metropac. And because it was signed, then of course, presumably, those things should have been.
Possibly
Iron
ang
out.
things to be ironed out at that time. Wala sad ka makadundom nga ang every 3 years nga automatic increase.
I do not recall.
Yung ani na lang engineer, lastly, honest opinion.
I thought that's the
Was the mayor,
the last question, Mr.
was the former mayor supportive of the signed agreement considering his presence? And he said nothing negative during that time. Kana lang, with that premise,
Yeah, I would presume that, sir.
Supportive siya of the contract.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you,
Alright.
Engineer.
Okay, ano na lang, Engineer Batar. Okay, diretso na lang ta kay mo pupos na atong oras. Engineer Jong, kining pagpili ingon man ko gaganina na sa katong pagsulod ni Metropac sa iyang unsolicited proposal nga part ka sa TWG, walay abogado ang Water District except ang inyong gitawag nga legal retainer, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Ang legal retainer, di ba moagi ni siya sa board for approval? Usa siya ma-hire?
Before he is hired, yeah, yes, sir.
What about ang inyong in-house counsel? Moagi ka po ng board?
What do you mean, in-house counsel?
Di ba, gawa sa legal retainer, namagin mo in-house counsel, katong organic yun sa Water District?
Yeah.
Moagi ka po na siya board?
Yes, sir, because the salary grade, I think, is, I'm not very sure, but then it would be equivalent to a supervisory position.
So,
it has to be-
in-house counsel or legal retainer, agi ka po sa board.
Yes, sir.
Now, makadumdum maka Engineer Jong nga ang legal retainer sa Water District at that time was Attorney Vincent Serinia.
Retainer, yes, sir.
Yes, and then Attorney Vincent Serinia is a cousin of the former Mayor Oscar Serinia Moreno.
I do not know that, sir.
Wala ka kabalo. Pero at that time,
Yeah, he
you
was
confirmed that he was the legal retainer.
Yeah.
Alright, okay. Unya dayon, ingon ka nga sa inyo baling pilagali mo kabuok nga tao sa technical working group.
What I remember is that 5, but then,
So,
well, I'm not sure if my
5.
memory serves me well.
Naapod si Vanessa Chu sa financial side.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Unya ikaw sa technical side.
Yeah, I was the chair actually, so there's
Unya
another
at that
technical
time
person.
naapod si Engineer Tony Yang sa selection committee, di ba?
I'm not sure if he's part of the selection committee, but then he was president of
Flow.
the Flow. I think.
First labor organization for the district. Base sa record, Engineer Jong, si Engineer Tony Yang was actually part sa inyong
Technical working
group. But anyway, then naadayon gikan sa kining OGCC, right?
Yes, sir.
So practically isa ra siya ka lawyer considering mora man ang naa dito sa composition sa technical working group. Pero at the same time, di ba wala man gibawalan nga mo participate pod labi na nga for purposes lang para lang gid kang water district nga mo appeal ang inyong legal retainer para sa paghatag og konsultasyon or pagtambag.
Yes, sir. But then what we do was to consult him every now and then when we believe it's necessary.
And
Pero
at
dili
this-
siya appeal sa meetings.
Okay. Engineer Jong, at the same time, sa katong panahon, imo man tong nabungat nga ang composition sa Junta Direktiba sa Water District kay tulo. Ikaw na gid ang nangingon, tulo ang Moreno appointees and duha ang Dungkoy appointees. Ang Moreno appointees was Concepcion Roa Kiblat. Nakabalo ba ka nga si Concepcion Roa Kiblat was a relative of the former Mayor Oscar Sirina Moreno?
Yes, sir, but I do not know how close.
Yes, but she was
Yeah,
a relative. Mo'y nadungog adto, di ba? And then, si Ed Montalban, mo'y chairman of the board.
Yes, sir.
Appointee gyapon ni Oscar Moreno. And then, kato dayon si Attorney Diligencia.
Diligencia, yes, sir.
Appointed gyapon ni Oscar Sirina Moreno. So, that makes it, ang dynamic sa Junta Direktiba sa Water District, majority ang kang Moreno nga appointees, di ba? Over the Dungkoy appointees nga duha lamang sila.
Yeah.
Kung ma-approve ang mga resolution diha sa Junta Direktiba, kinalan og majority.
Yes, sir.
And usually ang nga daog, ang katog yun ang suportado sa giaprubahan sa tulo kay majority man sa mga gitudlo ni Oscar Moreno, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes, okay. Nga mo nang ang ako lang nung Jong is, Engineer Jong is kining sa inyong technical working group, napangutanan naman ni Vice Chair Ronnie, no, ganina is ang mo siya ba siya pro forma ba siya or kung proforma ka ng moto inyong basihan nga model contract and then ipa-review lang sa inyo or gisynthesize ninyo na may version sa inyo sa technical working group ug ang Metropack napod sa ilang kaugalingon version and then nag-sit down din mo together with Metropack para inyo ding ihasa kung unsa ang i-reconcile ninyo ang unsay common ninyo nga masabutan.
Yeah, something like that, sir. As I said, doon naman good to duha ka stages, no? Doon ay
Yes.
katong evaluation of the unsolicited proposal.
Yes.
At that time, it was not yet a contract, but then terms naman to ang i-discuss dito.
Yes.
Terms and conditions. And then when this was approved by the board, the TWG had sort of some notes. There were no lawyers, as I've said, in our group. But then we have something to work with already, such that when we came to a discussion, we have that. And so Metropack came in with their own version, and so we fit in what we could
Okay, good.
and discussed those things thoroughly.
Gusto lang ko mangutan na Engineer Jong, ang dili na ko masabtan kay wala may labot ang general manager nga si Richelle Beha sa inyong TWG, right?
Yes, sir. By the guidelines.
Yes,
of
pero
NEDA.
as a matter of procedure, kung unsay mauyunan sa TWG, siguro base sa inyong baling sa protocol sa inyong plantilla, kinalagid ka inyo nang i-report mo approve pod mo sign off pod ang general manager nga si Richelle Beha, di ba?
Yeah, we submitted to her.
And then, pero di ba na siya observation nga nag-ingon siya nga sa iyang observation sa inyong TWG, gani imo pa mga nito naghimo po ka point by point nga counter sa iyang kining observation. Di ba isa sa iyang mga obserbasyon, Engineer Jong, nag-ingon si Engineer Beha nga, okay ba or legal ba ang usa ka contractor ni Water District sa bulk water nga mupalit lang siya og tubig? O ikaduha pod nga punto nga iya baling i-appeal mao ba nga legal ba di ay ang usa ka contractor sa water district nga walay physical plant? Unsa may imong
I do not
kasultan to?
recall those specific things actually exactly, sir. But then, what happened was that let me recall when was that? When before we went to bidding, the
Yes.
contract or the documents have to be approved with the board. And so when it was approved by the board, the perception was that, well, it went through the scrutiny of the general manager, who of course calendared it for the board meeting. And she wrote the OGCC citing
Those observations.
those observations. And so
Exactly.
even I, as a member of the joint ventures, as the chair of the joint ventures selection committee, was quite at a loss about how should I
reconcile.
deal with that, something like that. Because
Oh.
I thought that when it was approved by the board, then there were no more questions regarding the matter. However, she sent
Pero
the...
Engineer Jong, approved by the board, but as the AGM nga ikaw nagtimonel sa TWG, you still need the approval of your general manager, di ba?
I submitted the
Yeah, but then
things to
nakabalo
her.
man ka nga na siya observations,
The
wala ninyo to gi-incorporate sa inyo baling
Actually, sir,
Plano
along
sa
the course,
TWG?
along the course of the discussion on what the final contract will be, she made those observations during board meetings, because I was often called to appraise the board of what happened on the things that transpired in the discussions, and she would raise those things. And so I was always instructed by the board to look into that and clarify that in
So
the
she would
documents.
raise those things. So iyang gibungat ni Engineer Beha, naturalmente dapat unta ang board na mo kuha na siya, gikonsiderar ang unta ang niyang mga obserbasyon. Kay ang sa proseso ang board magyapon ang mo-approve, di ba? So ngano ni approve man si board knowing nga sa inyo lang daan nga line nagproblema namon ni Engineer Beha nga nasa mga obserbasyon. But then sa among nadunggan sa iyang pamayag atong niagi nga dinhi sa fact-finding napugos lang yun siya pagpirma considering nga nanghunaw ang board kay siya gyapon ministerial daw sa iya ang trabaho to sign the contract ang JVA o ang bulk water supply agreement.
I would not know about that dynamic, sir. What I can recall was that during the course of perfecting the documents, that will be submitted to public bidding.
Pero kay
This is challenge.
naama na sa
Nagit say
iyo.
observations.
Nasa observations. Pero did you consider
Yes, sir.
her observations?
Yes, sir. We tried to and change the documents to suit her observations. At the end of the day, when the contract was approved, she still sent those observations to the OGCC.
But then Engineer Jong, ang observation niya is walay physical plant ang Metropac. So dili gyapon ma-cure at the time sa iyang inyong gihimong gi-consider ninyo ang iya baling observation considering ang pinaka basic gyud sa kontrata is mo yang gi-question nga pwede ba mo sulod si Water District sa mong kontrata with Metropac nga kung sumahon walay physical plant lagi or mo palit lang si Metropac while sa katong nga panahon di ba nga nasayod man ka nga nagsubsist pa ang kontrata ni Water District og ni Rio Verde di ba?
Moment akong recall nga main objection niya. I cannot
Yes.
recall many of the other things, but then what I recall was her objections regarding the overlap karon ang duha ka contracts.
Yes nga. At the same time, nagdili lang sa pag-overlap sa duha ka kontrata, ang mismo gyud ang pinaka-logic sa pagsulod ni Metropac, ang dili na ko masabot, Engineer Jong. Manang gusto ko mo komento ka kay although na mga legal challenges ang kontrata ni Rio Verde ug ni Water District, apan nalansang man siya sa 1045 gani napay disallowance ni COA. Ang dili na ko masabot kung naamang gali knight in shining armor, naamang gali muhulip sa kontrata ni Water District ug ni Rio Verde, mo man na karon si Metropac. Ang dili na ko masabot kay nganong moagi pa man ni Metropac na may uban nga maka-provide og competitive rate or mas ubos pa nga rate ni kini Rio Verde. Ngano na lock in man ta ni Metropac nga kung butsumon wala pa man day siya planta. So na pa siya deliverables, na pa siya mga investments. Naturally, mo jack up gyud ang presyo sa singil sa tubig. Kay dito man siya gipasa ni Metropac nga pwede manunta sa uban nga mga kumpanya nga willing nga mo provide sa mas ubos pa nga presyo. Wala ba na na-appeal sa konsiderasyon sa technical working group?
There were no other proposals that the Water District received at that time, sir. And
No
I'm
were
sure
other proposals.
Yeah.
Kay tungod, wala sad na widely disseminate. Katong akong giingon na kay Atty. Rodrigo ganina, nganong local pamangyod, nganong newspaper nga barat pamangyod ang napili, knowing nga ang inyong kapangulitaw sa Water District, social, Metropac, and all nga ma-afford bali lugar ni Water District and Metropac kay baratuhon nga newspaper, nga namay Philippine Star and Inquirer.
I cannot remember, but then kana siya nga butang, sir, is a procurement in itself which has to
Yes.
go through canvas, and it went through the normal channels in the Water District. Our back secretariat got quotations from different papers who are certified to comply with the requirements for being a national publication, something like that. And
Sige,
so,
pero pag maingon nga national, of course, makakomply man ang uman na may minimum nga compliance nga national sila as to circulation. Pero mo gani, kay nipasar maka nga national siya, pero kung itandi nimo siya sa mga nailhan nga mga newspaper, sama sa Philippine Star and Inquirer o Manila Times, layo ra gid siya, wala gid siya nakasulod sa Big 3 at that time. Kaya ang newspaper nga napilihan, wala gid nailhan. Maski ako nakurat gani kung anaday ni siya nga newspaper. Mo man to akong issue, wala gid lugar sa Big 3 at that time. Naman si Manila kaning Philippine Star, Philippine Inquirer, PDI, Philippine Daily Inquirer, and Manila
Manila
Times.
Times.
Wala gid,
Manila
dili gid
Bulletin.
sila, napay Manila Bulletin, wala gid to sila.
well, Well, as chair of the JVSC, I did not dwell into who will be chosen. It
Sa
was
publication.
it was through the normal channels in the water district.
Nga, dili
Wala
ta,
man may
Engineer
nag-influence
Jong,
ito, sir.
kaning sa provision, kay imo magin na master magin mo, kay na maka sa technical working group. Wala ba ni mo natanaw, katong among issue gyapon ni, gipangutanan na ko ni Atty. Rodrigo, nga si Water District, dili basta-basta maka-increase. Kay subject sa
Yeah.
public hearing, ano maka na, public consultation, o pag-secure pa approval sa inyong parent company, si Lua. Nan karon ang provision ninyo sa inyong kontrata ni Metropac kay automatic maka-increase every 2 years. Abiso lang sa napulo kadlaw. Wala ba kayo nakita nga discrepancy or bikil sa mga provision sa inyong kontrata with Metropac?
Like I said earlier, said kaganina, of course, the regulatory environment at that time, dili sad kayo siya, ingon ani kalisod karon sir. For example, our last experience was exactly that, even less than a year, gikan sa public hearing, naka-pa-approve mi sa luwa sa increase in 2011. However, na delayed lang to because of a legal matter that we have to deal with the city government. However, gawas ana naapagay katong among gi-public hearing in 2011, do na pagay last two steps adto that we thought we could implement when we need it in the course of implementing the contract with
Pero naka-apply mo,
Metropac.
Engineer Jong.
Nagsulat mi
nagka-petition
sa
mo for
luwa,
increase.
nagsulat gid mi sa luwa to implement the first of those two increases.
Base
Nagsulat
sa
mi.
inyong kontrata ni Kobe. Dili po.
Yeah, as in anticipation of the
So naka-apply mo.
naka-apply.
Kung yaon sa may status ato na approve.
Wala sir. Actually, ang una gisite sa luwa, if I remember correctly, ang una nilang gisite was that we have exceeded the 5-year period for applications gikan
So-
sa public hearing.
So kung ina na Engineer Jong, sa'yo panggingon ni Atty. Rodrigo nga wala gyud daw kuno mo nag-attempt sa pag-apply.
Nag-apply mi.
So
sir.
what is your take? Subot pa sabot, nag-apply mo.
Nag-apply
pero
mi.
Nag-apply mo, wala na approve.
Yeah, wala lang na-approve.
So nag-apply mo.
Yeah.
Dili itong ingon ni Atty. Rodrigo nga wa kuno mo nag-attempt og pag-apply.
Oo, hindi. Nag-apply sad mi, actually.
Nag-apply mo.
Maybe what he meant was wala sad mi nag-conduct og public hearing after that. Pero
So,
nag-apply.
balaki. So, naklaro na ako na ay inconsistency karon sa pamayag ni Atty. Rodrigo nga wala gyud ako mo nanlimbasog nga mag-apply sa increase.
Naagid mi
Pero
different
nag-apply day
letters.
mo, base nimo ha, imo na pamayag
yes, sir.
nga nag-apply day mo, pero wala lang na aprubahan kay nilagpas na mo sa 5-year window sa pag-apply. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so
Mo to
nag-apply.
ilang unang reason, but then I think we have cited that we should not be part of that nga
Yes.
nga kuan nga.
So katong inyong application para pag-aumento sa singil sa tubig, panahon to sa inyong kontrata with Kobe.
In anticipation na gid.
In anticipation para sa first round of increase kay ilang giingon. Kay karon naa naman pud sila sa ikaduha nga round sa ilang increase. Mo nang gagukod na ang water district di na magkadimao ang inyong supposed billing sa 16 something sa katong lahi na pod nga singil ni Kobe.
Yeah.
So mo na nang discrepancy karon nga nanay ang labas nagka quote and quote nakautang na dahil karon si water district ang Kobe, correct? Dili ni siya nga utang nga dili gabayad si water district sa pinaka basic gid niya nga obligation ni Kobe. Kundi ang iyang utang is ang differential sa
Yeah.
singil ni Kobe o sa computation ni water district,
Yes,
correct?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Correct. So, ang ako lang dahil ani, balik ta karon is, wala lugar ninyo nakita nga, usa din na, ang pangutanan ako, kung mag-apply mo, usually, unsa man gyud ang time frame nga maaprubahan ni LUA?
Ang among anticipation was 1 year gid, sir.
1 year.
At
So,
that
mo gani, so kung 1 year, so let us say kung mag-apply mo, nagid malate gyud mo, di gyud mo makagukod kung automatic ang increase ni Kobe na every 3 years. Kaya 10 days lang ang abiso, correct?
Ang 10 days is kanang monthly billing nila.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in short, dili gid mo makagukod knowing kung mag-increase mo kinahanglan pa man og isa ka tuig para sa inyong application nga maproseso ug maaprubahan ni luwa, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So kung inada, maklaro gyud nga mabikil na gyud mo daan sa inyong kontrata ni Kubi kay di man gyud ninyo magukod considering nga 1 year pa man maaprubahan kung mag-increase mo. While itandi nimo kang Kubi nga automatic ang yang increase.
The
Diba?
other thing that complicates aniniya karon, well,
Yes.
the situation was different then.
Mga
Karon,
so bikil gyud sa nung
karon
engineer
man gyud naapagay murag I don't know if I'm correct, but then I was informed that the period for adjustment of water rates is 3 years lang gikan sa public hearing. So public hearing ka karon, you have a 3-year window to implement.
3-year window lagi. It's not the
So,
katong 5-year
pagpamamandat
window.
mo.
Lagi, but regardless, ang ako manggot engineer Jong is, dili gid mo makagukod kay it's not automatic. You may have an increase, but it's not automatic, di ba? Kay kinahanglan pa ang 1 year nga window or time frame para maggukod gyud nimo kung pananglit manggaling nga mangayo mo increase para nga makatuman mo sa inyong kasabutan ni Kobe nga increase, di ba?
Yes, sir.
So sa ana nga pamaagi, sa ana nga punto, Engineer Jong, na ay bikil sa inyong kontrata with Kobe. Muamin ka
Yeah, I have to admit that.
on that point.
Okay, on
Yes,
that point.
okay, thank you. So admit ka nga na punto. So ang akong pangutana din karon, Engineer Jong, wala na nimo nakita at that time sa
At that
technical
time,
working
yes,
group.
sir.
Wala.
Yes, sir.
So karon nga napaybaluan ta naman ka sa mao dining nga mo hinungdan karon sa problema sa atubangon nga water crisis sa Dakbayan. Aya pa nimo nabantayan nga naa din ang bikil.
Oh, pero like I said, sir,
Yes.
lahi sad ang regulatory environment at that time.
Yes, lagi pero
Lahi
karon
sad.
nga nitumaw na ni.
Yeah.
So nakita nimo nga tungod ana nga provision makasulti ka nga na disbintahaan ang water district sa kana nga provision. Yes.
Given the
Given,
current
yes, karon nga
situation.
naitabo. So na disbintahaan ang water district sa kontrata.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Daghang salamat.
you,
Engineer
sir.
Jong.
Thank you kaayo, engineer. Pwede ba nato punan lang gamay? Can we conclude nga ang apprehension sa the two former councilors like Attorney Leon Gan and Eric Salcedo nahitabo? Ang ilang apprehension at that time na tinuod karon, ilam nang gisulti daan, no? Pag sulod sa kontrata, nangayo sila hoping ang city matanaw na, no? Although dili partido sa maong kasabutan, pero duha ka city councilors nangita aning kontrata, no? Unya ilan na ning na project nga dako gud ang posibilidad, even karon gi-admitar nimo nga naa na ning problema. So makaingon ta nga doon na sila or vindicated sila sa ilang mga apprehension at that time nga mura og kakatawaan lang sila kaniadto.
Dili po kayo ko familiar kung sa ilang apprehensions at that
Ang
time,
ilang
sir.
apprehension daan, according to Attorney Leon Gan, ingon siya nga kini nga contract may lead to a water rate increase nga posible dili na ni acceptable to the public at that time. Si Eric Sad, hangyo siya sa COWD via resolution, pwede mahatagan sila og kopya, daw dili sila kabahin sa maong kasabutan, batungod kay ang kontrata is imbued with public interest, basin unta, ma-prevent ni karong mga panghitabua. Pwede na to sabton ngayon na. Nga if they were given access to the contract, maybe na-minimize sa imong term kaganina, posibleng ma-iron out, di ba? Like what happened nga prior to the conclusion of the contract, there were things nga i-iron out, di ba? Posible. Ang kuan ko naman lang posible, di ba? Posible unta nga naay ma-rectify nga nakita na to disadvantage sa contract. Is that possible? Was that possible?
I think so, sir. Pero
Okay,
mo
thank
lang
you,
like-
Engineer.
Sige,
Thank
sir.
you. So, thank you for answering in the affirmative. Thank you kayo, Engineer, sa kahigayunan, sa imong paghani. Daghan kayong salamat, Mr. Chair. Okay.
Sa lagyot kapangutan na Engineer Jong, kay ang ako usa mo nga sa inyong kontrata ni Water District ug ni Rio Verde din karon niabot din ni Banos dayon si Metropac. Naamagid kuno ang disallowance ni COA ug nya namagid kuno kinalan nga alisdan nagyud balik kuno ang kontrata. Ang ako is wala day nasugyot, wala na hunanaan adtong panahon na Engineer Jong nga imbis na lang nga mag-usab og kanang partido sa kontrata, magbag-o ta og kanang partido nga naa si Metropac nga wala pa nakaandam kay mag-invest pa siya, magbutang pa siya og pipeline, na pa siya mga deliverable sa contract. So naturally, logically magtaas man gyud ang presyo sa singil sa tubig. Nganong wala na lang nasugyutan sa technical working group sa adtong panahon na Engineer Jong nga i-reform na lang ang instrument para makakomply si Rio Verde sa unsa may disallowance nga gihimo ni COA.
Okay, we were asking for advice actually katong disallow sa unsa ni sa payments namo to Rio Verde when these were disallowed by COA. Ang katong pag-disallow tungod man to sa kanang validity sa pag-award.
Yes.
Lahi man sa tong naay special audit by the Commission on Audit Proper who came to us and investigated the project
Yes.
itself, the award and the everything that
Pero
went about. Pero na-disallow na daan sa sinugdanan pa, na-disallow na daan kay nakita man sa COA
ang bikil.
ang bikil.
Yes, pero curative, di ba? Pwede ra gyapon ang pinakagwapong option which was available at that time was to reform the instrument.
Ingani
Wala
magud,
na
sir.
sa naunanaan.
Ingani magud, sir. So ang findings sa COA when it disallowed was that the contract was awarded to a bidder who was disqualified by the Bids and Awards Committee at that time. So murag ingon ang COA nga kwanto siya kanang the contract should be abandoned. I mean ingana ang ilang ambot ka exact ba nga term pero ang ilang recommendation was to terminate the agreement.
Ang ako lang, Engineer Jong, kung kabalo ba ka, hindi na ko masabot, sa kontrata ni Water District ug ni Rio Verde, na ay notice of disallowance si COA, pero sa kontrata ni Water District ug ni Kobe, walay action si COA, nga taliwala, nga tataw man ang mga pipila ka mga provisions diha, nga makadaot or disbintaha gyud ang Water District ug ang epekto niini ang mga konsumidor gyapon sa Water District ang maapektuhan.
I cannot answer that, I think, sir.
Pero nahitabo ba sa imong panahon nga General Manager ka sa Water District nga nag-react o nabay notice of disallowance si COA?
Wala, sir. What they did was to look at the documents and required from us quite a good amount of documentations.
Yes, katong
And,
malagi pero
yeah,
wala
at the end of the day, wala man sa
wala siya
wala man
reaction
siya
taliwala
disallowance,
sa mga pipila ka mga provisions nga amo nagisulti sa imo nga namin nakita nga tagilit o disbintahaan gyud si Water District, di ba?
Sige, pero probably tungod sad kay ang disadvantages came about because of the current
Karon
prevailing
lagi nga
situation.
naagi bikil.
Pero
Pero
at that time, dili man po to extant nga mga
yes, pero mo lagi nga even with kana nga bikil, wala gyapon reaction si COA. Wala siya notice of disallowance ni Cagayan de Oro Water District ug ni ang tali sa kontrata ni Water District ug ni Kobe. Pero
Wala,
paspas
sir, wala.
kay siya na siya disallowance sa kontrata ni Water District ug ni Rio Verde.
Okay,
Diba?
tumanggod siya kay
Naibikil. Pero
Naibikil
karon
sa
lagya pa
pag-award.
ibikil, di ba? Lagya pa siya ibikil. Pero walay reaction si COA. Alright, so daghang salamat. With that, we dispense with the testimony of Engineer Jong Batar, ang former General Manager sa Water District. Engineer Jong Batar, in behalf of a grateful people of Cagayan de Oro, thank you for sharing your time sa ato nga matagaag kalamdagan ang katawhan ug labi na kami sa fact-finding ug sa paggahin sa imong panahon aron mahatagan kita og katubagan sa mga pipila ka mga pangutana. So subli, daghang salamat Engineer Jong Batar.
Thank you, sir.
With that, with nothing more to add and no other testimony, I call for adjournment.